Did you hear the infinite dog barking earlier?
Yeah. For 20 minutes.
That's how he went.
I do apologise to listeners for the way you barked like a dog for 20 minutes of this podcast.
I do it when I'm agitated. It's so hot in here.
Hello and welcome to episode 191 of the Crate and Crowbar. It is the 30th of May 2017. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Tom Senior.
Hello.
Philippa War.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
So, for the final time, I regret to inform everybody, we are going to do a new section about Far Cry 5. This is the last one. Definitely the last time we do this.
It's just before E3, so nothing's happening. That's why we have to talk about Far Cry.
There's going to be some playthrough of it at E3 that's amazing, and we'll be itching to talk about it.
If that happens,
I don't think that'll happen.
We'll find another segment of the podcast to put it in. I'll ask on the down low. I'll ask a listener to write in a question about it. We should, because we can finally talk with maybe some actual information about the game we've been talking about for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless,
the trailer looks like. So we knew the setting last week, which is Montana, a fictional county in Montana, and it's a religious cult that's sort of setting up a militia there, and it's sort of like Christian-based cult. No real talk of racism so far from them. It seems like it's mostly a religion thing. And then the trailer shows just sort of disjointed clips of gameplay that include riding around on quad bikes, shooting Uzis, which is just extremely like Far Cry 4. Very little that it shows is different to Far Cry 4. There's planes in this one. There were helicopters in Far Cry 4. And that's about it.
there's a man being chased by a bear.
Yeah.
So, but that's very Far Cry anyway.
Yeah.
For someone to be chased by a bear.
I mean, they have made the same game 3 times in a row. Surely it's just going to be the 4th in that same game series.
Yep, I'll be happy with that. The one thing, I read an interview, and obviously most of it's about the setting and stuff, but the I don't know, the creative director or whoever it was they were interviewing said the magic words for me, which was like if you look at the outposts in Far Cry, they're a kind of they're a bit of gameplay that you can approach from any of 360 degrees, and we thought, what if we could apply that to the main story missions? I'm like, what? Yes! And I don't have any hope that they'll actually do that, like go all the way through with it, but even if that's just their goal, then just taking a couple of steps in that direction would be such a huge improvement.
It's more than 360, isn't it? It's 360 times 180, right?
Because of degrees of vertical elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you paraglide it.
Because it's essentially like a hemisphere, right, that you could approach it from.
There are some in Primal where they're up on a cliff, so you can come at them from below as well.
Oh, well, there you
So
go.
it's a little bit more of a vertical thing. But there are also some that are against a cliff, so that whole 180 degrees of that
Maybe it averages
direction is
out.
Yeah, what they need is to give you like a drilling mole machine, like that one rarely seen Thunderbird 4 attachment. Only
Or the
then.
thing from the Turtles.
Yes, it's
They
just
had
a kind
that
of
driller thing that they
Yeah.
would get into and go through the earth, right?
Yes, or at least a baddie did. I don't know. It's been a long time.
Shredder and
Yeah,
Krang
Bebop and Rocksteady,
Rocksteady.
I believe, used it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they add that to Far Cry,
Are we going to have to kill 5 eagles to make a rucksack in Montana?
I think you can.
You can employ
Have
them.
pets.
You can employ bears and cougars.
make
What is
The
their salary?
Well, the thing is, the only reason that stuck with me was because bears and cougars kind of mean something very different in
yes.
I remember I saw a poster for a bear party in Seattle, and I was very excited, and then I googled it. And that was not what I thought it
But
was going to
you had a great time at the Otto party.
And cougars
There was a
again.
sloth party in San Francisco last time we
There
were there, right?
was,
And that was really a
But
sloth.
that was real. Yeah, that was a real sloth. So, yeah.
What can you employ bears and cougars to do in Montana?
You're bidding.
When you say employ, do
In
you
auctions.
Do you mean like as in they sign on? Like
I don't really know because I wasn't really paying attention and I kind of didn't really care because Far Cry 5 to me sounds like a meal deal. But I figured like I would read the press release because of diligence, and it just said that you can make bears and cougars fight for you.
Yeah,
so it's kind of mercenaries.
They have that in Far Cry Primal. You can tame them with meat and then they become your pets, and then you get this like stable of pets where you can have like 20, and they don't you can only have one at a time, and they're all in this magic like menu thing where you can just summon them and dismiss them. So I'm imagining it's going to be something like that. But there's a great line in the Kotaku preview where the journalist asks any chance of like an upgrades for the dog, because you can have a dog, and he says, well, you can imagine where we're going with that kind of thing. Can we can imagine where you're going with the dog upgrade system. I'm not sure I can.
Mine has tank tracks,
Cerberus heads, 3 of them.
If you're talking about Metal Gear Solid 5 direction, then awesome, where like the dog can have a stun knife.
I don't know, maybe like, because what's better than a dog? A cat, maybe?
No, let's not get
debatable.
into this.
Or like a monkey?
Yeah, I mean,
a bear would be like arguably. Although, so in Far Cry Primal, the bear is the tough one. The dog is not high damage or high hit points, but can go and fetch things for you. So it'll go and loot bodies for you.
The Jack Russell of all trades.
And they have actually, they have actually said that in Far Cry 5 they'll be able to go and like pick up guns for you and bring them to you.
But they're pack animals, so could you multi-dog?
Probably not. I think they're probably going to do the one pet thing again.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it seems more likely that you'd have a pack of... Yeah. Don't know why they would limit you, really.
You could also have a flock of flamingos, but I'm not sure what bidding they would do.
No, they...
Fly, my pretties.
Fabulous.
Well, you could maybe play croquet with them.
They're psychic like the Far Cry Primal owl, but they don't go anywhere, so it's just like, well, that's what the lake looks like today.
Back and forth down the lake.
But no, because don't they live in those really highly corrosive salt marshes and things? So, like, and their legs are basically made of, like, uranium or something to protect them from
I'm not sure.
Is that true?
I maybe was playing in my imagination when I was watching Planet Earth 2. But the broad point is the same.
They are highly resistant.
Uranium legs remains true.
They are highly resistant to salt marshes, so if they want to gate off any of their 360-degree mission areas with a salt marsh, perhaps, riding on like a bed of flamingos, because you probably couldn't ride an individual flamingo.
When they do their strut.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that would be so great to crowd surf on them.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good.
That's not going to happen in the video game Far Cry 5.
See, this is why I prefer going off into my imagination and not playing Far Cry 5.
That's the only place you can play it right now.
Oh.
Because it's not out.
Yeah, but in my imagination, Far Cry 5 is also just like a coffee and a sandwich for £5.
Oh.
Because the Boots meal deal was always really sad. And so I used to think of it as the sad blunch. Boots lunch. But then Far Cry would be because you have to walk to get it and then you feel sad about it and it costs £5. You see?
It's a Far Cry 5.
I didn't question that logic the first time you said it, but now...
And that's all of the Far Cry 5 news.
Indeed. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say about it, really. And there won't be until it's out, and even then, it might have already had its time. That's what you get for announcing your game in tiny, tiny drips. So, but there was news from a few weeks ago that is also what you've been playing, Tom.
Yes, I played Destiny 2. Yeah,
it's kind of remarkable we didn't talk about this already, but I wanted us to wait until you were back because you've actually played it.
I have actually played the PC version as well. It's now on PC and it's really good.
Tell us about Destiny 2.
So Destiny is...
Destiny
is...
I wonder if they ever considered that, if anyone even suggested it.
Kind of a persistent online game, which is focused around co-op activities such as 20-minute strikes, which are like mini dungeons, through to 6-person cooperative raids, which are these incredible kind of puzzle shooters, which require just intense leadership, cooperation. What's that? Teamwork.
Teamwork.
That's what I'm looking for.
It's a mixture of cooperation and leadership.
Mash teamwork into leadership, and you get that. And all of this happens in incredibly exciting space environments, which look like beautiful works of concept art that have just been brought to life.
Like the moon.
Like the moon, but
I hear
actually
the
no
moon's
longer
in
the moon. You go to more exciting moons. You go to Titan.
Oh yeah, that's a good moon.
And Io.
And Io.
You do go to Io? Cool.
And
the new one.
Nessus.
And Nessus.
Yeah, which is a Vex world. The Vex are a robot AI race who live throughout time and space, and when they colonize a planet, they tend to mine it out and turn it into a kind of extension of their consciousness. So that's Nessus. So you can do lots of shooting heads on Nessus on top of their shit, which is good. But what's so exciting about it is that there's nothing like it on PC for a start, and also it's kind of, it feels like the second coming of the MMO, like a reworking of the core tenets of what the MMO does, but as a really good shooter, as a really fun and consistently interesting shooter with cool character classes that let you play a space warlock or a space titan who's like a tanky one, or a space hunter who wears a hood and can like stealth around a bit. And they can also use the same.
More to it than that, we can do roly-polies.
Yes, that's true.
Hunters are the worst.
They're the best.
I heard the word stealth. I think I'm sold on a class.
Well,
No,
they're not-
you
it's not really stealthy.
you're guaranteed to be the. Actually, they've basically removed the stealth from Destiny 2,
maybe
so we
so.
can get to it in a minute. But
It's all about shooting, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
don't want to mislead anyone.
when you said there's nothing like it on PC, I actually heard through the Force the entire Warframe community cry out in terror
They were suddenly silenced.
before being suddenly silenced. I've never actually played Warframe, but I've never really been attracted to it because that's a profoundly ugly game. But like, I understand Warframe does a lot of the same things as Destiny, but Destiny is at a level of polish that I'd be amazed if any other game reached it.
Yeah, and a completely a different level of scope as well. Like you don't have those raids in Warframe, and no game has those raids.
No.
That's like a design pinnacle than the raids in Destiny 1, like Vault of Glass, which was designed by Luke Smith, who's now the lead on Destiny 2. Basically, just used to be a really hardcore World of Warcraft raider. Played it really intensively, and he's translated not just the kind of moment-to-moment mechanics of an MMO raid, but the feeling of an MMO raid, of that intense teamwork and kind of clutch moments of victory in very difficult circumstances. Just like really high level of challenge, but as a puzzle shooter, cooperative puzzle shooter, which is I've not played anything else like it.
No.
They've never bettered Vault of Glass, though. I would say that is still the best raid.
I've not played the new one.
I haven't played the
People
most
say that's really
recent
good.
one.
But,
I have a soft spot for not Crota's End, Oryx, Kingsfall. I do have a soft spot for Kingsfall because like nothing, the thing they like, to explain why the raids are so good, they're always a mixture of intensely complicated boss encounters that require a kind of choreographed dance of all the players doing kind of crazy high concept sci-fi things, like disarming the 7 sentient musical notes that will delete you from the timeline if you don't, or
by shooting them.
Yes, by shooting them with guns. Or as another highlight of the Vault of Glass, retrieving an object from one of 2 different alternate future or past versions of the room that you're in order to take the shield on the boss down. Cool things like that. And then between those things are kind of like
Slapstick
chaos. Basically, mostly revolving around jumping puzzles. And then there was the stealth section in the Vault of Glass, which they never really returned to. Sensibly. But they almost acted as great levelers, because my experience of raiding a lot in Destiny 1 was people who are really good and calm and collected during the boss fights can't do the jumping puzzles, and people who can do the jumping puzzles, God knows, in the boss fights. So there's always this leveler of like your best, most reliable, traditional raid activity person will fall down a lot during the funny jumping bits, and I will always be fond of the King's Fall jumping bits.
No, I hate the King's Fall jumping bits.
They're so funny.
It's so miserable. You can tell who was good at the jumping bits, and it was not me.
Hunters are fabulous at the jumping bits because of our triple jump.
How many players do you have in these raids?
6.
Is it just that's the maximum?
Yeah.
Oh right, so it's quite small.
It works really, really well though.
Compared to because World of Warcraft was like 40-man raids and stuff, right?
It feels like what would be a group in a World of Warcraft raid is a player in Destiny. Because I mean, it almost literally, like it's not miles off. Actually, it's even less than that, because a 40-man raid would have 8 5-player groups in it, dedicated to like healing, DPS, maybe performing particular objectives based on the boss. And Destiny works actually very similarly. It's just that one person takes on a bigger set of responsibilities by themselves.
In terms of it being an MMO, are you do you run into strangers in public places?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people in one area is sort of normal?
That's a good question.
Because there's Guild Wars 1 was technically an MMO kind of, but there was really only in missions there are only like 4 of you, I think, and then in towns there'd be a load, but you couldn't.
Yeah, it's very close to Guild Wars 1.
Guild Wars
Really
1 is
is.
very good
right.
comparison.
Yeah,
Destiny
yeah,
generally
it's
is.
almost exactly the same structure, which is what I've said in my PC Gamer cover feature, coming to stores near you soon. And yeah, it's kind of, you trace Destiny's roots back to Guild Wars 1 and Diablo. Those are the 2 things that it really does. So it's about going into these little kind of short co-op bits and getting a bit of loot out of it, going back to town, looking at your cool gear and leveling up, and turning into like a cooler space person. And in that process, you're obviously showing off to your friends. But what Destiny does is tie that to a shooter for a start, and it's Bungie making it so they've got all this experience of creating mostly console shooters. But what I've discovered playing it is that they really know what they're doing in terms of they've tweaked it significantly to make it work with a mouse and keyboard. So, for example, on console, the pad version of the game, the reticule is slightly below center. For reasons of just game feel, apparently it just feels better, and it aligns with enemies' heads more easily. So the smaller, weaker enemies, the cursor's designed to line up with their heads, so that you get more trivial headshots on those guys, and you get more of a quick power fantasy of like snapshotting a load of aliens. But they've centered that for the PC version. They've changed the recoil on all the guns, so that you're not chasing your mouse cursor and dragging it back down constantly, whereas on pad that feels quite natural because you have that continuous movement with the thumbsticks.
Right.
So they've really thought about, like, very carefully about the feel of the mouse and keyboard and how it differs from a pad. And I was very encouraged to hear that, because that's what I was really worried about, is that this immense pad shooter wouldn't translate onto a PC with that kind of faster frame rates, that demand for high latency. But it feels great. It feels great.
It is. It's a bit of a shame that it's coming later on PC, isn't it? Because
it really is, yeah.
Like the big question that I know we're all sort of asking each other is like, well, which platform are you going to play on? Because we just want to play with our friends, right?
PS4.
Yeah, I'm
And
definitely on PS4.
if it's first, then yeah, everyone's pretty much going to play the console version.
Yep.
I mean, it's still good for people who just don't have PS4 version, but have they talked about crossplay at all? Is that
it's not going to happen?
Not
No.
going to happen.
I don't think you're even going to have like shared accounts, like shared characters across games or anything like that. They're going to keep them quite separate.
I guess it's not as if there's not going to be a PC community, right? Like, no matter how late it is, there'll be a shitload of people playing it then and there.
Yeah, for sure. What's a shame about it is that Destiny's at its best when all the communities are at the same place. When something new has come out and there's that buzz, not just in the game but offline on forums and on Reddit, people trying to discover new secrets and people kind of talking about new lore revelations and bits of dialogue they liked. And that's as much a part of Destiny as the game itself.
Yeah, I would imagine they probably don't want to stagger it too much, because then you get into things where, like, when the expansion is hitting for console, like, you wouldn't want that to be on a delay as well, would you?
That'd be really sad if that happened.
I wonder if the raid will hit, like whether they'll delay the raid to hit on both at the same time, even if the...
Yeah, one would hope, because that's very spoilerable. Like the raids are very...
Right.
Kind of, spoiling a raid is a big deal. So when 3 of us in this room have played a lot of Destiny 1, and whenever we went into raids, like, we used to do like cold raiding, where you go and you don't know anything about it, and you've been there for 9 hours because it's so hard to figure out what the puzzles are, but it's such a satisfying and unique experience.
You wobble your way towards a solution just by trial and error, and someone accidentally finding that, oh, if you stand on this thing, this happens, and like, you'd find out later that a thing that you thought was integral to it was actually just an accidental thing that one of you did, and it doesn't need to happen at all, but you've got into the habit of doing it because you thought it was important.
Yeah, and it's such like I know Destiny 1 is definitely in my top games of all time, like, without a doubt. Like, I mean, ever since I put PS4 in this room so that we record the Bloodborne videos, I've been playing it daily again, just because it's such a good kind of reliable, brilliant, entertaining shooter attached to progression mechanics that I'm fond of. But like, my greatest memories of that game will always be having gone into those things for the first time with a sort of an assortment of friends, and actually having kind of made friends through it as well, because I also have the core group of people that I knew quite well, but I got to know, this is the oldest MMO story around, but I got to know people that I maybe wouldn't have known that well through the fact that they also happened to be playing, you know, PS4 Destiny and wanting to do the same things at the same time. And then through this sort of extended raiding community, I found that Destiny genuinely had a lovely community on the whole, and I met like a huge PlayStation 4 friends list of people who still play the game because I spent 6 months raiding every week with random groups, and that just introduced you to loads of people. And, you know, like, I'll always be kind of wanting to recapture those experiences with Destiny 2, I think. So it's kind of it's going to have to be PlayStation 4 for me, I think. Also partly because it's really cool to hear that they've captured something of the PC version. But like even today, after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of that game, I am amazed how well designed its controls are. Like on pad, like it's an extraordinary. Like the sort of the how intuitive it feels, like, and how physical the kind of aiming of the weapons is, and how there's lots of little things or you eventually learn in some sort of deep action game mechanics way about the point at which your melee attack will lock on and pull you slightly towards the thing you're hitting, which you can use to manipulate jumps and things like that, and all of these tiny nitty-gritty mechanical things that feel so kind of good now that I almost don't want to have to relearn that stuff on a pad. On a mouse and keyboard. I'd like to go continue using all of that kind of Destiny instinct.
You might change your mind when you see it at 60 frames. It really makes a big difference. And it was impressive going to the event. They had the PS4 version on PS4 Pro, so it's all 4K, and the PC version also running on 4K monitors. And it was running at like an absolute rock steady 60 frames per second, looked astonishing, and it felt just so precise and crisp. And I'm not normally like a big like frame rate guy. I don't really care unless it matters. But there are a few games like, you know, action games and shooters where there's such a difference to the way the game feels. And I think if I was to play it on PC, I'd struggle to go back possibly onto a PS4.
Yeah.
And it looks gorgeous as well. Like it's worth mentioning like how good Bungie's artists are at creating huge kind of hopeful sci-fi universes. The imagery, like the loading zone for you going from one planet to another, is that you watch your ship kind of hovering just in orbit of the planet that you're on, and you can find new ships, so it's almost like a little kind of collectible that you have. And then when the loading is complete, the camera pans around and the ship just goes into hyperspace and bursts off towards Saturn or something. And you get this beautiful sequence of just traveling between these planets and then going in and landing. It just looks astonishing, and if you love sci-fi, especially colourful sci-fi, then Destiny's world is going to be a treat, real treat.
Talk about the stuff you actually got to play, Tom, because
so we played the first campaign mission, which basically takes all of Destiny 1's plot and puts it into a bin and then sets it on fire. So the main kind of play space, the hub location for Destiny 1 was the tower, and that's where you'd hang out and you'd kind of cash in your loot and, you know, upgrade your character and buy stuff from vendors. And they added more hub spaces, but that functionally the tower is the kind of the beacon of the Guardian's home. That's the place where they live. And comically, in the first like 7 seconds, there's a guy standing at a window and he's like, "What's happened to all our satellites?" And then he turns around and looks outside, and just a ton of alien ships come out of the clouds and set fire to the tower immediately. It's just Bungie like striking a match and throwing it onto the, you know, everything they've done in Destiny 1. Destiny, just very briefly to give a plot overview. A lot of people know about Destiny is that it's got a giant ball in it.
I remember the giant ball.
Yeah, everyone remembers
that was
the
the
giant
wizard,
ball.
was it?
No.
No.
What was the wizard?
There were many wizards.
The wizards.
Was that the visitor?
That's the traveller.
Traveller, that's it.
So Bungie games, there's a lot of kind of just terms.
Nouns.
A lot of big nouns.
Big nouns.
I love big nouns. I love a big noun, me.
And it's a big noun for a big ball. Giant.
Big nouns, and I cannot lie.
Yeah.
The Traveller is it's kind of a beacon of hope that has kind of camped on Earth, and it's being chased by the darkness, which is this strange. I know.
They're early. It's being chased. I mean, it sounds unbelievable, but actually the story's amazing. It's being chased by an early noughties glam rock band.
Fate worse than death if he gets caught. But yes, that's the thing that you'll see, and that's a huge part of the plot in the first game. There's this guy called the Speaker who speaks for the Traveller in a voice
And
like
it's
this.
Bill Nighy,
And-
for some reason.
And he says
Why do they call him
nothing
that?
very slowly for about 3 years. And in the first 5 minutes in the opening mission, you go into a courtyard, everything's under attack. There are drop pods coming in, and these huge hulking cabal, which are basically like Roman legionaries from space, come out, and then you shoot them in the head, and it's brilliant. And then you get a radio message that says, "The Speaker didn't make it. I'm afraid he's gone." And I was like, oh my god, have they killed the Speaker? Have they actually taken this like massive, enormous plot hole from the first game and just killed him off because they just don't want to deal with him anymore? I think that's what you're going to get from Destiny 2, is just like a reset on that whole universe. So if you're worried about having to catch up with all that stuff, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. So yeah, the first campaign mission progresses, and it's basically just shooting guys for you go down into the city, which is under the Traveller, and they've done it up like a beautiful kind of Blade Runner full of neon signs, and it's raining, and there's aliens kind of coming down from more drop pods. Just looks incredible. And you shoot more guys there, and there's a theme emerging here, which is very much what Destiny's like. And then you go to another beautiful place, and eventually you're kind of confronted by the big boss, who's called Dominus Gaul. And he's just a big silhouette. He's the captain of the Cabal kind of invasion force. And it's a lot like a lot of Destiny's missions, is quite short but full of spectacles. There's a bit where you get into your ship and then you go up into orbit and you go onto the Cabal ship, and it drops you off outside, just outside the railgun attached to the ship. And you see the railgun firing these enormous kind of mass blocks down at the planet below, and you have to kind of time it so that between the mass blocks coming through and being shot to the earth, you kind of go up into the barrel and then infiltrate the ship to actually get to the boss arena.
Awesome.
And the spectacle of it is just fantastic. Like it's a linear mission stuff. It's just a corridor shooter really, but what they do with it visually and just in terms of the production values makes it feel like the big kind of space opera stuff that you always want. I've always wanted from sci-fi games, really. The stuff they've brought over from the Halo series that they always did very well.
Did you play more than they showed in the presentation? Because they showed most of that first mission, didn't they? And then they cut it off before you would have met Gore.
Yeah, that's exactly the bit that was playable.
Oh, okay.
But we also got to play a strike, which was very good, called the Inverted Spire, I think.
Oh, okay.
What is a strike?
They showed some of that.
That's like a 20-minute dungeon, basically.
For 3 people. So it goes like, there's like solo stuff that you can do with up to 3 people, but that's optional. Then there's strikes, which are designed for 3 people, and then there are raids, which are designed for 6. And that's how Destiny does.
So the strike was set on Nessus, which, as I mentioned, has been taken over by this robot consciousness. But the Cabal want it as well. So you go down, it's like it's being mined out by the Cabal, who their big deal is that they just have planet killer ships. They've got huge kind of industrial war machines that do their work for them, and if there's a planet in the way, like the Vogons, they'll just melt it with big huge drill, and they're trying to mine the surface to get to the Vex secrets underneath, and that's the story of the strike. And functionally what that means is that you fight over battlefields where Cabal and the Vex are fighting one another, and you're kind of going through and clearing them out and killing their dogs. Then you kind of go into this huge valley which is being mined out by a skyscraper-sized mining machine, which is mining the place out with huge spinning blades that are kind of rotating horizontally, which is essentially a jumping puzzle where you're jumping from tier to tier while shooting things, trying to avoid these giant spinning blades. Eventually you get into a hatch, you go down into the Vex dungeons, and all the architecture changes and the kind of technology around you changes, and there's kind of a 3-stage boss fight where you're falling to different arenas, and the boss changes his tactic and kind of changes elemental damage with each section. So it's very much just a fun shooting challenge with friends that gives you a bit of loot at the end. But they've incorporated some of the design elements from the raids, but in a much easier to understand form. So a three-stage boss fight where the boss is changing elements is more advanced than anything they did with the strikes in the original Destiny.
It's a bit Prison of Elders, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also like the later, as in the February update this year, added some variants on old strikes that inherit some of the raid mechanics from stuff. So they started to toy with that a little bit in the first game, but not loads. Yeah,
they've definitely they've gotten better at pacing the strikes, I think, especially because it gives you like a battlefield, then it gives you a jumping puzzle, then it gives you a bit of kind of dropping exploration as you go deeper into the planet, and then a firefight, and then a boss fight, and it just feels much better paced than the original game did. I mean, so much of Destiny 2 is basically going to be Destiny 1, but with stuff they've learned and mistakes they've made taken into account.
Yeah.
So in Destiny 1, a lot of the lore, which is brilliant, by the way, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise, unfortunately is kind of delivered to you in grimoire cards, which are in an app that's outside of the game. And you find the card in the game, and it goes to the app, so you have to open up your app, and you have to find the card and flip it over. And
or go on the website.
Or go on the website. It gives you 2 paragraphs of lore. And you collect hundreds of these things, and eventually you'll piece together the really deep and interesting, genuinely cool sci-fi concepts behind Destiny's world. And you'd never have any idea that any of that stuff was there if you were actually playing it. And they've promised they're going to bring more of that into the game, though they haven't said how yet. There's definitely not going to be grimoire cards or anything like that. So I'm hoping for a much more conventional codex, or at least something that...
I will not read it if it's a codex.
Really?
Yeah, I really struggle to read things on screens.
Right.
And so I think that's why I didn't read all of my Grimoire cards, but I had a better hit rate with them than I do with other kinds of MMO where it's like, here's your codex, and I'm like, I will never read that codex, but good to know which hotkey it is.
Maybe they should put like a print function in, it's like Control P, and just
Honestly,
get it all
like
out.
I really, like, I say this for any game. Like, I think having the option to read codex entries or listen to audio diaries and things on an app separate to the game while you're doing other things is an underexplored area of video game storytelling. Phantom
Yeah.
I
Pain
listen
does it.
to it as a podcast in the bath or something. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Rather
Yeah.
than, or as like a little radio play sort of snippets.
With all
would
that,
be cool.
all that really great incidental writing, there's so much potential. And I think this is something they've only ever achieved by accident in the past. But there's so much potential for it to be a way to keep your interest in a game alive when you can't be playing it. Like, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, unlock a half-hour podcast about the Vex that you can listen to on the way to work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That kind of thing. I mean, have it in the game as well, definitely.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I would defend having it outside as well.
I seem to remember this came up before, and is it right that Metal Gear Solid 5 did something like that? Like,
Yeah,
there
it
was
does. Yeah, Metal Gear 5 does
that
exactly
has-
that. It's just that the app is clunky.
Because I would, they're always trying to sell me on some kind of app that I have to use while I play the game, or I could use while I'm playing the game, and I get bonuses. And if I do, like, I don't know, if I play the hacking minigame on my phone, I get unlock some more XP in the main game or whatever. The one thing I would kind of like that for is if there was an audio diary listening app that I can use to listen to audio diaries like podcasts outside of the game, but also if I have that running while I'm playing the game and I find an audio diary, it's just handled by my phone. So it starts playing there, but my play and pause controls are on my phone, and then I can just play and pause that independently of the game, because they struggle so much with audio diary controls. Like, there's just,
Yeah.
they end up wanting to put it on one button, so it's the play last audio diary button, but we talked on the Prey pod about how that causes terrible results and also is buggy.
Yep. Where's my parcel? That's what happens when I
And
press
it's-
L in Prey.
It's also so frequent for, like, you're in the middle of listening to a podcast and someone starts talking and then they just overlap, and you have to, like, stop the whole game and go to the menus to stop that from happening.
I don't think I've ever had that, but I do have problems with things that play on several devices, because I was trying to listen to Christmas music on my Spotify downstairs, but because I was on my laptop, for some reason it was then playing on my PC up here, but I didn't realise that until I came up to use my PC and started playing something, and I could hear it playing on my laptop downstairs, and so I
Trying to
was
avoid
kind
you.
of thwarted by all of this technology.
This was last week, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I wanted to listen to Mariah.
Spotify is amazing at avoiding the option you want. Like, it always defaults to what you don't want. Like, whenever I'm on my main PC, it defaults to playing on my laptop. Whenever I'm on my laptop, it defaults to playing on PC. And I'm like, it doesn't take fucking Sherlock to tell which PC I might want it to play at. It's the one I'm at. You know which one I'm at. It's this one.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that they could still, yeah, like you both said, do more interesting things. Although I don't think I would want it to autoplay on a device that I have forgotten where it is.
Yeah, you'd have to be running the app, so you'd be kind of like opting into it.
I'd like to retain the ability to have that stuff outside of the game if I want it, short of looking it up on wikis, basically. I think I like that feature, but I agree that it should be in the game.
Yeah, I don't want to be flipping over tiny cards, hundreds of them, to do it either. That's fucking stupid.
Like, I mean,
Yeah,
do
well
you
done.
remember how excited people were about the apps that let you meddle with your inventory? And it was
Yeah.
because the system in the game was so clunky.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a flat-out power advantage to being able to do that. Not in terms of like competitive power, but yeah, in terms of
It was just essentially that people didn't have to hang around waiting while you went into orbit and then went to the tower and then went to your vault and then went
Yeah.
back in again.
You can access missions without going into orbit now.
I know, that looks
Hooray! Says
exciting.
every
Hooray.
Destiny 1 player ever.
yeah.
So it's really basic stuff they're fixing, but hopefully it still kind of seems exciting to people who don't know anything about it, because it's a sci-fi shooter. When was the last cool dedicated kind of shooter, persistent shooter you played? I mean,
Yeah.
Prey was obviously kind of more of an immersive sim. There just aren't many of them, and Destiny, with the amount of kind of money and production values behind it, is really exciting move into that area.
It's interesting because it does feel like the thing you say about this is all of the lessons they learned from the first game. Because by all account, the first game had not a one of those really problematic production cycles, but it famously had issues and things like rewriting the story at the last minute. Even stuff like if they get rid of the exo stranger and the speaker, they will have just quietly done away with some of the hastiest decisions they made about the plot of the first game.
Yeah.
Because it felt like Destiny 1 discovered what it was about over the course of a couple of years and a couple of expansions and people's certain characters becoming more popular than others and that kind of thing.
I think they didn't know what people would like about the game when they made it. They just didn't know what people would latch onto and kind of really get into. And so now they've had a chance to double down on the stuff people like, which is why you're seeing more of Cade, who's voiced by Nathan Fillion, who's kind of a space cowboy robot with a good sense of humour, and the guy voiced by Lance Reddick, who seems to voice loads of video games now. He was in Horizon Zero Dawn as well. So those characters...
Oh, is he Broyles from Fringe?
I don't know.
Who is he in Horizon Zero Dawn?
He's the kind of agnostic companion guy who gives you loads of missions and leads you through the plot.
Yeah. Broyles from Fringe.
Yeah.
He's in The Wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Zavala in...
It's an amazing voice.
Yeah.
So they've kind of they've realised that people have created all these memes around these characters now, and they've got internet cred in a way. So they're kind of doubling down on those. They're going to be the kind of the thrust of the new plot, where they're scattered across these planets. You have to kind of go and pat them on the back and pick them up and send them back into the fight. That's kind of which is a cool idea. It's character focused rather than big Spaceball focused, which is the problem with the original list.
Like some characters get sidelined. Like I was sad to see Akora not get much screen time in any of the promo stuff.
Yeah, she's one of the main. She's one of the three though. That she's gone to one of the 3 planets. So she
is, but when I was watching all of the promo material, it's so heavily centered around Cade and around Zavala that it was like, really? And she was just kind of there, like in the background for Zavala's speech, and it was just like, oh, have you just not, she then goes off to the spiritual sanctuary and stuff, and I was a bit like, oh, okay, so you sort of haven't really given her any screen time, and I get why, but at the same time, it's like you could have made her a bit more interesting this time around and made her, cooler. There's different ways of addressing that.
She gets the best moment in the whole opening mission.
Yeah, but I don't know, I don't feel like I feel like she got short shrift in that whole thing.
I think she's representative of something that Destiny 1's always struggled with, is that because she's the Warlock mentor, because each of the 3 of them mentors one of the classes, and the Warlock mentor and the Warlocks generally always bear the most spaceball of all of the plot. All of the characters, all the stuff the Warlocks represent, all the stuff they're interested in, all the stuff they do is the most esoteric Destiny's fiction gets. And I think that's an additional burden to bear on top of everything else. So, I don't think that excuses them at all, but I think it's...
Yeah, she struggled because she's an awesome character when you actually read her lore. She's basically operated under the radar as a interstellar space commando, just going solo with a shotgun from world to world and, fixing problems quietly for humanity. So she's the terse badass. But the terse badass doesn't get the cool lines that people then latch onto, and they could still give her cool lines for sure, and they could still give her that screen time to kind of give her a chance to shine.
That's basically what I'm objecting to, is that they could have done more and they didn't, and it felt like they dropped the ball there. And what they've done feels in keeping with who her character is. So it's not that it's this is a travesty. It's more just as a kind of. It felt like the easy option, and
I think,
highlighting.
I think I can see that because also Cade has gotten so many hero moments in the first game, and already kind of.
Well, he's the bender of the whole thing.
He is, yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, definitely.
And because Zavala is kind of the kind of straight up and down military leader, he's more of the obvious kind of stand with me, new players. I will teach you how to war.
He's the guy who gets to say, "Shut up, Cade."
Yeah,
whenever he's being a dick, and they actually have an interplay, whereas Ikora really struggles.
Because it's
kind of their eye rolling on the sidelines and doing the research and doing
she's the space Scully. Literally, it's Skinner, Mulder, and Scully. Those are the 3. That's the 3 archetypes of the Vanguard in Destiny, pretty much. Punchy dad, kind of eccentric, right about everything guy, and eye rolly
Magic Scully.
Yeah.
So she just needs to be more scullied.
She does.
She needs to be more
absolutely
more GIF moments.
She does. She jumps onto a spaceship and uses magic powers to blow an entire engine off it, and then surfs it off screen. Point in the first mission,
she does,
which is pretty great.
But yeah, you can guess which moment I have watched several times.
Sorry if this is a bit inside baseball for people who don't know what Destiny is. Tom, do you have any questions about it? Because you're the kind of...
No, I think I've asked mine, but most about just structure stuff.
It was interesting. I mean, speaking of inside baseball, it was interesting how much of that presentation was some of it was obviously here's the big spectacular new game, but a lot of it was given over to discussions about the things they've changed that are super huge deals and super interesting, I think, if you're into the first game, but come across as like, why are you talking so long about matchmaking?
Right.
For people who aren't, like, 'cause I remember seeing those discussions on Twitter. There was like, you know, between people who don't play Destiny, basically, people like, God, you know, they're acting like they've invented matchmaking, and it's like, no, they haven't. They're having a really long discussion about the specific way they've decided to do matchmaking for raids, because that was the most contentious topic for the entire lifestyle of the original game, which was that it didn't let you queue to play a raid with strangers, and it's because they wanted the freedom to design encounters that required you to be on voice comms with people, but they didn't want to force people into voice, you know what I mean? So they didn't want to create that negative play experience with forcing people to play with strangers while doing something that is designed to be fun if you do it with friends, where you need that level of communication and trust and kind of all involvement. And they've, by all accounts, I'm really impressed with the solution they've come up with for that, which is a system that will allow people to form clans and then queue for challenges with their clan. And if you don't have a full team out of your clan, solo people can be matched with your clan, but no other combination of things is possible. So a group can't be matched with another group, two clans can't be matched together, and solo players can't be matched with each other. And it's designed so that whenever you're a solo player queuing, everyone else will know each other and presumably trust each other. And if you're a clan, you're going to get someone who is there because they want to kind of fit into your system. And I think it's really clever. Like no other MMO I can think of has done that, but it's very kind of it's a very specific piece of MMO design designed to solve the problems that Destiny 1 had without losing the things that made it so good in the first place. And I think I was quite impressed by it. During that presentation, it was interesting watching the sort of visible boredom spread across Twitch. Right. Like, God, why are they talking about matchmaking? It's like, it's because this is like the most important thing that the first game didn't get right. And it's really nice to see them pull that off, I think.
Yeah, clans as well is a really cool idea. Obviously, there are clans in the first game, sort of, weren't there?
Yeah, it was more of a tag you had and didn't do anything else.
Pointless, but hopefully they'll turn that into a thing. So yeah, it's really exciting. I really hope its release date isn't too far away from the September 8th console release date, though the Bungie have not dropped any hints at whether it's going to be weeks or months or what, so we'll have to see.
I'm a bit worried that my friend player base is going to fracture horribly, and because I had nowhere near as many people on my friends list, because I hate voice chat with strangers, because partly, you know, audibly a girl, so it's a bit more of a lottery. But I prefer console shooters to PC shooters, and so I'm worried that if too many of my friends migrate to PC, I won't have the base on the PS4 to do much apart from sort of solo Crucible kind of bits and pieces, which is their PvP. And then if I go to PC, I won't be good enough at it that I can actually raid with people or play with my friends without it just being too much of a disparity. So that's a bit of a concern at the moment.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. It's a worry I have on PC, especially multiplayer, where I just don't have a great level of Twitch skill. It's one of the things I really like about Destiny as a pad shooter, because it kind of levels the playing field a little bit. And because a lot of Destiny is about like when you use your super and kind of, you know, positioning and how you go around corners and stuff like that, like positional stuff rather than Twitch stuff. People who are really good at Twitch can get a lot out of Destiny 1, but there's space for people like me there. Whereas I worry that in a PC shooter, where, you know, the level with mouse and keyboard is going to be so much higher, just the physiological requirements, I just can't do that stuff. So if it turns into a kind of elite community, then I'm just not going to be able to do it on PC, really. And I enjoy playing Crucible as well. One of the best things about Destiny is that it's got to kind of casual drop into whatever you feel like at the time, and you kind of play it for an hour and just get a lot of different experiences. And it's almost like a variety show that always gives you a present at the end of it and a bit of leveling up.
Yeah.
And if a chunk of that is removed by, you know, the player base being too good, then that's a severe blow to the game.
I mean, I don't play CSGO at all on PC because, I mean, obviously it's only on PC, but even though I have loads of friends who will happily play it, I just don't get anything out of it because I'm just not good enough at it and I don't enjoy it. Whereas on console, I'll play things solo because it feels like I have more of a, like you were saying, the playing field is a bit more leveled, and you know, it takes out some of those Twitch requirements just because on a pad you can't do them in quite the same way. And so yeah, like I will happily while away time on console where I won't on PC, and so that's a bit of a concern, particularly if people do end up gravitating towards the 60 FPS. Like,
I think it would be, at this point, I think a miracle for me to play it on PC. I mean, there's other things like playing it as soon as possible is a big thing. The other thing is that even though they're kind of resetting progress, they've said that they're going to carry through. There are things that will carry forward about having been a Destiny 1 player, even if it's only likely to be sort of like fringe, sort of achievement-y, sort of cosmetic stuff,
shaders.
emblems and shaders and things like that, I imagine.
Oh, we blew up the tower except for your weird costume dye.
Yeah. Your collection of banners survived, sir.
Your weird butt flag.
Yeah, I don't have a butt flag. I have a full flag. Butt flags are for Titans.
I know. You have a Titan, don't you?
Yeah, but she's not very high level.
No.
I'm a one hunter guy, really. But like, so I 60 frames per second. I'll probably end up getting the PC version to look at, to maybe have an alt or something. But I also I've always really appreciated it as a break from the PC game environment. And I think it will remain a console game for me, to be honest. Unless they really screw something up, but I don't think they will. Yeah. Tom, Francis, what have you been playing?
I've been playing two things. One is Cave Blazers, which is a new... there's nothing else to call it but a Spelunky-like. It's extremely close to Spelunky. It is a side-on platformer with randomly generated levels that starts in a brown kind of mine-type environment, just like Spelunky. The differences are that it's... the main one is you have a melee attack that's with a sword that's a bit like Spelunky's whip, but then you also have a ranged attack, which is just a bow with infinite arrow that you can fire 3 times a second. And on pad, you move with the left stick and then right stick, just whatever direction you push it in, you fire in that direction. Actually, it's kind of snapped to 45 degrees, so you can only fire directly up, across, or diagonally. But yeah, infinite ammo, no kind of reload time, so you can just spew out damage like that. And then the other differences are it's much more forgiving in lots of ways. It's still difficult, but on my first ever play of it, I got to a boss and defeated it and moved on to the next world, which is certainly not true in Spelunky. Very few things insta-kill. There are spikes, which I think are insta-kill. I've died every time I've fallen on spikes, but they're really easy to avoid. There are very rarely any jumping puzzles with those. There's an enemy that explodes on you, and I swear it does 10 damage out of your 100 health pool. It's really not that big a deal. Enemies don't hurt you when you touch them, so enemies have to actually do an attack on you in order to damage you, so you can just run straight through enemies. And it actually the combat feels a lot more like combat. It feels like there's an actual fighting system here, and which enemy you're fighting determines their attack pattern and how you have to deal with those. And then it's just got a huge, crazy amount of stuff to give you. You get items from crates like you do in Spelunky, but they'll be they're just 3 or 4 of those on every little level of a level. The levels, I was going to say per level, but that's not a fair comparison because the levels are about 4 times as big as Spelunky's. But yeah, you're just getting a constant stream of stuff, and they're able to do that because the stuff is not like Spelunky. Every new item is a sort of fundamental change to your ability set, whereas here you start with an iron sword, and you can find a butcher's sword, and that's twice as much damage, but you take 25% more damage from enemies. Or there's a dragon sword, which is generally better, and on a 3rd strike it will do amazing damage and knockback. Or I had a holy cross type thing, which every 2 enemies I kill, my maximum health goes up by 1 point, which is really cool. And then you also find new ranged weapons. I just found a Gatling gun recently, which is fucking amazing. I think it's almost the equivalent of the shotgun in Spelunky because it's wildly powerful, but it knocks you back while you're using it. And it also, you can only jump to half your normal height, which is a huge problem. But you also have an inventory, so if you are picking up all these interesting things, you can just store them in there. And if you want to be able to jump at full height again, put your Gatling gun away and put something else in that slot. You can also have rings with passive buffs, and you also have a magic item where one of them is just any amulet will go in that slot, and that gives you passive buffs usually. But then there's ones like a skull that follows you around, and every so often you can activate it, and when you activate it, it'll shoot for you for a while. I got one that's like a ball and chain swinging around me at all times, and it just constantly damages any enemies that come within that. And so that ends up feeling like Risk of Rain. And Risk of Rain just kind of showered these items on you all the time, and your build ended up being not like, which of these 3 do I use, but like, okay, I've got 28, and here are the 28 I found on this playthrough, and these will stack in interesting ways. And actually, like Risk of Rain, I think if you get two of the same thing, they're just separate inventory items and nothing special happens, but they have altars, just like Spelunky, but instead of sort of offering things to the gods and getting weird rewards, altars only do something if you put 2 of the same item on it, and then it becomes a more powerful version of the same item. So I think I put like 2 emerald rings on it, and an emerald ring is something that makes you better at archery, and then I got like a perfect emerald ring, and that made me way better at archery. And those differences really do stack up. Like, it's, if you find the right items like on level 1, by level 2 you can be really powerful. There's a little bit of persistent progress to it, so you can unlock actually I think these might be maybe they're just unlocked by levels. So you have a sort of XP bar, like when you die it'll tell you how many points you earned in that life, and then you sort of level up overall, and you unlock a lot of cosmetic things, and then you also unlock perks. And the default perk you start with is Adventurer, which means you start with 2 bombs and an apple. But then I unlocked the Archery or Archer perk, and that makes my arrows travel faster and my attack speed 10% faster with a bow, and I think +1 range damage and -2 melee damage. And that's the one I've kind of stuck with. And that means I don't get the bombs and I don't get the apple. So you just start with an empty inventory. And a lot of those seem split between like different play styles, and then a lot of them seem like they're just challenges. They're like, this one just fucking sucks, frankly.
Sounds just like FTL.
Yeah. Those come pretty thick and fast as well. I've got like 4 or 5 of those, and I've only played probably no more than 2 hours in total. But it feels like it gets hard pretty fast. At first it's way easier than Spelunky. It's way more forgiving in general. I don't think there's even fall damage. I've never taken damage from falling. You also find companions like all the time. There'll be sort of 1 or 2 of those per level, and they'll just run around and join you and go out and attack enemies, and it's much more ad hoc. Like it's less of a... In Spelunky I was kind of terrified of companions because it's so volatile and it's so life and death. Like every situation has to go perfectly or you're dead, and the companions are just too unpredictable for that. Here it's much more kind of wishy-washy. There'll be a bunch of orcs with battle axes, and your friend will just run into them and just attack them for a while, and maybe he'll get himself killed, but it doesn't really matter. And if you soften them up, then that's good for you. And so yeah, like the combat feels much more like combat. It's really slick too. Like the just feels nice in a way that I think it's so close to Spelunky in so many ways that it would be I would be pretty critical of it if it wasn't really good at what it did. It feels like every difference it makes from Spelunky has some thought behind it and ties together well. And it's kind of makes me happy because I remember, particularly early on in my time in Spelunky, I kept thinking like, fuck, it doesn't need to be this punishing. Like, I swear to God, it would still be just as good if they could just, like, if arrows didn't do 2 damage. Like, the hardest thing to see coming takes off half your health. And yeah, I kept thinking that the game could be more forgiving, it would still be good. And this game is more forgiving, and it is still great.
What was it called?
Cave Blazers.
Cave Blazers. Okay.
It sounds rad. I love the idea of a kind of more gear-focused take on Spelunky that isn't quite as punishing. That sounds really good.
And it's just, I feel more like each life has... it's much more likely that a given life will find something interestingly different. Whereas Spelunky, like, when you do find a jetpack, it's a huge deal, but you find a jetpack 1 every 100 runs, maybe. Like, a jetpack in the mines would be at 1 every 100 runs. If you get far enough in Spelunky, then yes, you'll find some stuff that makes your playthrough different. But the mines is going to be pretty much the same every time, to some extent. Whereas this level 1 always gives you, like, 5 or 6 items, and that there's such a big pool of those that those are usually different every time. There's a whole bunch of items that just make really interesting combinations and they're cool to find. It also has a daily challenge like Spelunky, although my one attempt to record that one of the modifiers. It, like, as well as just being randomized in general, it adds some modifiers. You don't get to choose your perks, so it gives you some perks, and then also we'll just add things like, today you get slower movement speed, and there's more enemies, and something else. And the more enemies thing turns out to not to be kidding. Like, there's more than twice as many enemies, and they're taken from later in the game, so that it's just absolutely brutal.
How did that go then?
I lasted like a minute and a half. I die, because it's also like the first one I'd done, I was trying to explain the game, and I was looking at my inventory and explaining that it had an inventory, and while that happened, an enemy I've never seen before flew up to where I was, and just as I came out of the inventory, I think it started to attack me or something, or I saw it and I got out of the inventory, and that was when it spat like 20 fireballs at me and killed me in one hit. And that's a fire bat, I guess. I haven't seen those before, but they exist.
Speaking of fire bats,
Ah,
that's a hell of a segue.
yeah. I've also been playing Legacy of the Void.
StarCraft 2.
Yep, the last campaign, which is the Protoss one.
Pip
and
looks confused.
Well, I thought you were going to say, speaking of which, I've been playing Fire Bats.
Fire bats are a Terran unit in StarCraft. Yeah, they are. There's no getting around that.
I remembered this when I was thinking about it, but that was the face that made me look confused. It was the thinking face.
Oh, I see. I see. Sorry, Tom.
Do go on.
I'm actually playing this because I've watched a bunch of pro StarCraft lately, and two things kind of made me especially keen to go back to it. One was are they called Disruptors, the Protoss ground unit that fires like a big ball of damage?
Those kind of is a ball.
But yeah, it's a ball and it fires balls. It's a very ball-based concept. And those are brilliant fodder for like tense moments in pro matches, because it's a targeted ability that you have to sort of aim at a location, and it takes a while to reach that location, moves pretty slowly. But I think I'm right in saying, like, the enemy doesn't know where it's going to land. They can see it coming, but they don't know where it's going to stop, and it does a huge amount of splash damage.
Because it's not a projectile; it is the unit. Like, the unit turns into an energy form and moves, and then when it leaves its energy form, it basically telefrags anything it's on. So it's that's why I was sort of talking about. Yeah, so the disruptor like turns into an energy. It's a small golden ball. It turns into an energy ball, and then it can phase through units. And then if it turns back into a ball while it's on something, then it.
Do you have to commit to where it's going to do that when you fire it, or can you sort of do that?
Still move it? So you move it like you would any other unit as it's running around.
Okay, so you're just sort of charging in like a baneling almost.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to play this, because I kept seeing these units being used in really cool ways, and I was like, I wonder how that actually works. And also, did they change Void Rays? Because the commentators are talking about like turning on Void Rays, and when I last played, Void Rays had to be charged up. You had to just shoot some stuff for a long time, and then they became powerful.
Did they change Void Rays?
There was a big thing about like some pro player like turned on his Void Rays on a Zealot, and that was like, well, what are the like? Why would he do that? And I was like, I don't know
I think they have a toggled damage amp. I don't know if they still charge up.
Yeah, that would explain it. It seems like something that was a waste, basically. So yeah, I just ended up realizing like, I don't really know how StarCraft works anymore. I really want to play these things. And also, I've really enjoyed I've always got something out of the single player campaigns. They often have missions that feel like bullshit to me, but I really like that long-term progression thing where you unlock new mutations for your units, like
I love that.
Different variants. And I remember you saying, Chris, that the Protoss campaign, you unlock those variants, but also you can switch them at any time. So you just go back and forth. And that's already come up, actually. There's a mission in there. For the most part, I'm finding these missions a lot closer to sort of real games than some of the stuff I remember. Particularly the Terran campaign was all kind of special one-shot things of like, there's a train and you must use this unit. And whereas this is much more, there's an enemy force and you're going to have to defend against it or attack it. And there's one where you're really early on, it has a mission that feels like the final mission of the campaign, where you have to hold out against the oncoming waves of Zerg for until I've skipped all the cutscenes, so I don't know the context of any of my actions, but there's a ticker of how many Zerg are on the planet.
You're missing out on some of the worst dialogue.
I have so little patience for exactly what this is. It's almost like, I think like Blizzard stuff in general is the kind of lore I usually don't like that much. And then also the Protoss is like the zenith of that. It's like the most prophecy-laden, reverse echo, self-serious, old-timey speak.
Oh, I love it. It's so bad. It's like the amount of like fake Shakespearean space nonsense whiffled by people who don't even have mouths.
That's just Blizzard, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but Tom's right. Like specifically the Protoss, like above and beyond all of the Blizzard lore.
Oh wow!
Like they speak some real bollocks. It's
so
great. It's so
I've been
good.
skipping all that, so I don't know what my last stand was about. But there was a ticker that said like how many Zerg are on the planet, and it said hold out for 1 billion Zerg. And I was like, I can hold out for 1 billion Zerg, sure. And then that was my main objective, and I did that. And then there's always a bonus objective, and that gets you some resource that you can spend on upgrading your, special abilities. And the optional objective was hold out for 1.5 billion Zerg. To be honest, my defense was falling apart right around the 1 billion Zerg mark, and got overrun by Ultralisks and stuff. And I thought I had to kind of manually end the mission, otherwise it would be a failure. And I didn't know what the failure condition was exactly. It turns out it's losing your Nexus, and I lost my Nexus, but actually that just goes to the victory condition because I had passed the victory thing. But then afterwards, I thought about I'd use Stalkers. Stalkers are actually one of the things I was excited to do was because I never really played Protoss and StarCraft before. And one of the things I love watching in pro games is when you have a big cluster of Stalkers, which are kind of robotic walkers that have a ranged attack. They're not that powerful on their own, but the great thing about them is they can blink, which is a short-range teleport, and the great thing about that specifically is with any other ranged unit, if you tell them all to attack something, the first ones who get in range will stop, and then the other ones will kind of queue up behind them. They'll try and form like a concave around it, and eventually you'll get all your things attacking, but it takes a long time for everyone to get into position. And if you can teleport everyone to not just like within range, but sort of right on top of the thing, then all of them are in range instantaneously, and they all hit with their first shot, and so you can just one-shot all these different things. And I was having great fun doing that, just having like 25 Stalkers and blinking them all into the same thing so that they instantaneously destroy it. And so I didn't even, when you finish the Stalker mission, it gives you a new variant of the Stalker that's like slower and tougher and longer range and more damage, but it can't blink. And so I was like, I don't care about that. And that last stand mission, and I failed the bonus objective, and then afterwards I thought, actually I didn't really micro my units there. Like the limiting factor on my success was that I just couldn't handle managing my base and multiple defending on multiple fronts. So I ended up not microing my units, leaving them where they are, building their turrets, and that was the right way to go, but I hadn't gone that far in that direction, and so I got picked apart. And I thought, I bet I could do that again, but with the other kind of Stalker where I don't have to micro them and they're just tough, and just mass those. And so I actually loaded an older save and did that. And it worked amazingly well. And it was really cool just to like shift into... I'm like, I have 1% of the brain power of the pro StarCraft players, so I can't do... even at my basic level, I can't do both micro and macro in the same game. It's just I've got to pick one. Either I'm going to have a small group of units and control them well, or I'm going to mass units and not control them at all. Like they'll just stand wherever I send the order. And so I just focused on my base and building enough probes and getting a second base, and I had a natural for my first time ever. And yeah, just getting a really good economy and then spending all that on units that just stood still. I just like put them all, like, there's 4 different entrances to your base, so I just massed them in 4 different locations and built like 6 of the ultra turrets that they give you in that mission. And yeah, I completely aced it and easily did the bonus objective. So I really like that thing of switching in different unit types. And yeah, I'm excited to unlock more.
I'm excited to see what you make of the story if you continue to skip cutscenes. Because that thing
Probably
is
not much.
going to stop escalating. And I think the things you're doing will make no sense to you. Like, why am I this faction now? Like, it's going to, I don't know if I should recommend you actually watch them, because no one really should. But it is amazing nonsense.
Every time anyone starts to speak, I cringe at the reverse echo filter. It's such a corny, like, boring thing.
You just don't want to hear someone say the phrase. I remember I did that box out for my review of the game for PC Gamer, which was like, which of these things isn't a Protoss word, and the one that wasn't a Protoss word was there for Pip's benefit, because it was Paul Danan. Actually, it sounds a lot like
It does
a
sound like a
Protoss
Protoss word.
God, I think I love nonsense too much to skip those cutscenes.
Yeah, but you'll remember it all as well, and then
Yeah.
it'll come up in, like, I don't know, some law challenge.
Yeah, for some reason I know what a lot of those Protoss words mean, which is that's the worst. I don't know why I know that, but I do.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know. I know what Antaro Tassadar means, and I wish I didn't.
Yeah, but you're kind of proud of it. That was a humble brag.
It was a humble brag. Yeah,
Right.
it's like I just did an excellent fart. That's like it's like no one wins, and I don't expect
Least
everyone
of
to think less
all
of me.
us.
Yeah, indeed.
What
I'm glad
does
you're
it
enjoying
mean,
it, though.
then?
It means in memory of Tassadar.
Oh, for God's sake. Well, hang on, what was the word?
Antaro Tassadar. I think it's in the memory of
Well,
Tassadar's a
then
guy who
that's
dies.
Right, well then, I mean, at least one of those things is a proper noun,
That's
so...
true. Well, I like big nouns.
Ugh.
And I wish I hadn't even brought this up. But no, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Tom, because it is a really solid. I think it's the best of the StarCraft campaigns. Nonsense notwithstanding. It's a good time. And yeah, and it's super long as well. Like you are.
Really?
Yeah. They just keep going. I heard this guy.
Oh, yeah, because I've unlocked 2 options for all the units I've got so far, and I've got like 4 or 5 units. But there's a sort of third option that's going to grade out. So I'm going to get like twice as many units and also another option for all of these.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and you'll get all of that. You'll get that third optional.
Oh, yeah. Also, I just unlocked sentries, and I was interested to do that because I see them used in pro games a lot. They're sort of a super important thing in Protoss. And neither of the variants I have can make force fields, which is like their whole role in the pro scene, which is super weird. I'm almost glad because I think this is why they don't do it, is because that just requires insane micro. Like there's situations where it's really critical, like in a big mass army battle, you have to really know what you're doing to place them right, I think.
You do. However, spamming, I used to be a Protoss player, spamming sentry force fields is actually really fun, regardless. Like, because you just have to, I think it's on F. But you just have to kind of like spam F click,
Yeah.
and like a kind of little line, and you can just create this, you can just draw with them.
Yeah, when you see pros doing it, you would think they all appear at once, like there's no delay between
that's
one
nuts.
chunk and the next.
I can achieve like a kind of, piano sweep kind of like effect. Not the full kind of crazy pro precision thing. But no one can do that. Apart from like the 13 people on the planet who can.
Yep.
Pip, you're looking at me with withering scorn. Is it the Tassadar thing? I do apologise.
No.
You're still remembering Tassadar.
No.
What do I think about Tassadar?
I wasn't thinking about any of this. I'm so sorry. I couldn't think of a lie fast enough. Oh.
Well, someone doesn't remember Tassadar.
Well, I mean, I
No one
would
gives a
if I knew what he or she did.
I can't. Flew a big spaceship into the Overmind thing.
That's
in
really
StarCraft
your
1.
thing, not mine.
It was a big gold spaceship. Did something. There
I
was a
don't know
blue
why
light.
they need to tell you in Protoss language that you should remember Tassadar.
It's
You're
like a
not
kind
going
of-
to forget Tassadar.
I think it's remembered. I think it's meant to be. They say it all the time.
Don't care.
Yeah, and I didn't think you would. Stuck in my head for years. I think it's because it's one of the barks when you're played so much multiplayer StarCraft that those barks are stuck in my head forever now. So that's maybe an excuse. It's not an excuse, but I said it anyway. What have you been playing, Pip? Video games.
Okay, yes. No, it stopped being StarCraft, has it?
Yes. Well, it can. It can.
No.
Tom, did you have anything else
Can
to
be
say
again. I've got one of my variants for Dark Templars, who are permanently invisible, are also immortal. They just spawn back at base when they die. That's it.
Reasonable. No, that sounds interesting. What's a Dark Templar?
Well,
Do you really
I
wanna
think
know?
you'll find.
Ugh. I want to know what Tom thinks they are.
Okay, they're invisible men with swords. With
Okay,
maybe
Chris,
sword
does his
fists.
story check out?
Yes, they're. Oh god, I don't want to get into this.
Sometimes-
Yeah, but you know, don't you? You know all the secret things.
I think their dumb name is Tal'Darim. I think, unless that's a Diablo thing. One of them is Tal'Darim, I believe. There are two like temples of StarCraft thought, and there is the
And yet there's
a
no
bit
space in there for remembering to take your hay fever pills.
the pills. Yeah, no, indeed. Well, that's because if I don't forgetting to
If you don't remember Tassadar, then what happens?
yeah, exactly. it's yeah.
Take 2 Tassadar every day.
Exactly.
Be free of hay
Remember
fever.
antihistamines.
That kind of fits because he sacrificed himself to feed himself to a giant, basically snotty mouth.
Is this spoilers for Tom?
No.
He won't even
Spoilers
realise.
for-
Not email.
Spoilers for StarCraft Brood War.
That's early.
That is.
That's
Yeah.
the first one.
Don't know. Just like I love this stuff because it's so dumb, but I don't know if that's a worthy use of my time, or brain, or memory, or.
Yet here we are.
And yet here we are. Pip,
Yes.
what have you been playing? that
I've
isn't
been
StarCraft 2?
playing Dota 2.
So have I.
But badly, because quite frankly, everyone was so excited when they announced all of the changes that they were going to make with Dota 7.0, and then they bloody changed everything, and now I don't know what's going on, because it's like, well, I mean, there was 2,000 hours down the drain, all instantly, because now everything's in a different place, and it's been in a different place for months now, and I still haven't got used to it. It's like when you go home and they've, like, renovated the car park, and everything's in a like Wittard's isn't there anymore, and you just everything's in disarray.
Is that earth shaking? It's like they're not being a Wittard's anymore.
Well, you know, and you can't orient
That was the most
yourself
Pip
properly.
shot you could have picked.
Yes, well, but you know what I mean. And now there's like all kinds of things, and I
Where
forget.
do I buy my fancy tea?
Yeah, well, exactly. And also they've got like that rune that I still can't remember what it is or what it does.
The arcane rune.
Yes,
That's been
and
in the
then-
game for like much longer.
I know, but I still haven't, like, my brain is just stuck about, like, 1,500 hours in, and now it has refused to learn more things, especially where new staircases are, and where, like, Roshan lives now. He's moved. That's been a while, but still, where the hell is he? We're over here. Shall we do Roshan? No, he's at the other end of the river. It's a nightmare.
Would you say he's gone up or down the property ladder?
Well, he's gone upstream. So I assume, well, it depends.
Still a riverside
whether,
property?
So it depends whether you think that being upstream is desirable for him, in that he wouldn't encounter presumably hero blood being washed down, but he also then presumably wouldn't encounter hero treasure being washed down. So I guess it depends where you fall on the scavenger.
Or maybe he gets first pick on the hero
spectrum.
treasure. that
Exactly.
Washes from other maps.
He is in a
So-
fully detached cave now, or he's only in a semi-detached cave before.
End of
That's
terrace.
true. Although it's now got water all around it, so there's probably a damp problem.
It's true.
But then again, the water isn't coming at the front door; it's going like behind and
Yeah.
away from. The
I think his
Sounds nice.
water problem is actually a lot better than it was.
really.
Does
Yeah.
he still... It might not have ever been true, but does he still drop a cheese or a shield?
He still drops a cheese if you've killed him several times, and he drops a.
He drops cheese a lot sooner now, actually.
Oh, well, fine. But he also drops the Aegis still. That's still his thing.
Right.
Which, you know,
I'm
fine.
not sure if it's a shield or a magic gem that lives in his brain. I think it's a magic
well,
gem
an
that lives in
Aegis
his
is
brain.
a shield, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's more of a it's like a abstract name.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you've got one on your wall.
That's the Aegis of Champions. The Aegis of the Immortal is the other one. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. You're a nerd.
No.
But anyway, it's such a weird thing, because I've spent so much time in Dota, and I still, like, at this point, I just feel like it's not anything that I can even recognise
Wow.
when I play. Like, I can do it when I watch, because I'm not also trying to play. It's not sort of also messing with my spatial memory. It's just a sort of, get your brain in gear for talent trees and things. But when I'm physically on the map, I'm so disoriented, and like even like items that were introduced many patches ago now still feel weird and new. Like there's the Octarine core, and I still don't get it. And it's that weird thing of I spent so long on this game and I still have nothing to show for it. And
Even less
that's
now.
it's such a strange feeling. And a lot of the things that I had mastered were sort of pretty basic housekeeping things that they then folded into the bits that make it a bit easier for people to onboard with. And I'm a bit resentful of this, because I was like, well, those are the bits that I'd got. I haven't got the other bits. God's
That
sake.
was a life skill until now.
I know, and now it's just, oh, well, that's taken as read. Let's do the other bits. And I'm like, well, so you say.
Yeah, because
This,
sorry, go on, Tom.
like a lot of people had this with TF2, where they started adding so many items so fast that anyone who took a break from it came back and was just like, what the fuck is going on? This guy's a milkman now? I'm covered in piss for some reason? Is that what they've added to Dota?
Pretty much.
Games as service is bit of bad direction, I think, for the industry. Just hearing just the miseries you've all gone through with these games, where just the rug coming out from under your feet, reality is different now, and
I think
You have it a little bit with Destiny in that, like,
That's
if
true.
they rebalance some of the guns and you're suddenly like, why is this not working anymore?
yeah, I've not
side
quite
ups
had
are good
it.
now, Tom.
Hardlight was always crap, and that's the gun I was in love with. And it's still terrible.
It's because it fires hard light.
It makes such pretty shooty patterns. I like it. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think though, like, it's more that, like, if you leave it for any length of time, the ways it changes are so kind of epochal. Like, it goes through epochs, as that means, like,
Well rephrased.
yeah, and you can probably miss one but not two in a row, and then otherwise you're
Well, the
basically
thing
learning
is,
the game from
once you've
scratch.
missed 2, you might as well miss 7.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. Like, that's when you're in full, like, oh, different game. Like,
But I think it's one of those frustrating things where League feels more contained, and that can be both a blessing and a curse, because it's sort of far more dictated by the whims of the company that makes it, whereas Dota is sort of an exercise in, well, let's see what happens. Sort of, obviously there's immense skill to that, but it feels a fair amount more freewheeling, and several different strategies can exist at once, and there's a lot more flexibility within everything. But it's also it that makes it this unknowable thing that I've never been able to slot as comfortably into my brain, because it requires too many moving parts when I'm also trying to do RTS stuff that I wasn't brought up with, and so and hotbar things that I can't do, and that micro versus macro, like, oh god. And so yeah, like, it's this really weird thing where it just seems to be snowballing away from me every time I boot it up, which is a strange feeling, given it monopolized so much of my life, to feel like you don't have anything to show for it is weird.
Yeah, it's weird, because if it was like a single player game, like a Skyrim or something, I mean, Skyrim's not very skill based, but something skill based that you'd sunk hundreds of hours into, you would sort of always be able to go back to it, like even 5 years later. Even if they had patched it, you could probably get the version that you used to play, whereas with a purely multiplayer game, it's sort of lost forever.
I have an
previous
old
versions.
version, like an old version, on my laptop that I will not update.
Oh, right, so
It's
you can
so
play it
old.
offline, I see.
Yeah, and it's just a really weird sort of exercise in history almost. You boot it up and you've got like item costs and items that don't even exist anymore, and heroes that aren't going by that name anymore because copyright, and all of that kind of stuff, which is super interesting to me, but obviously I can't play it as a game.
Yeah.
Weirdly, not quite PC games related, but I've been playing Netrunner recently, card game. But like Netrunner has just grown and grown and grown, and it's like knowledge built on previous knowledge for the whole thing, so it's kind of expanded and expanded and expanded. So that's like an impenetrable mess, which is what Dota is to me, really.
I've resolutely refused to upgrade from the vanilla set. So, because
Exactly.
I'm just like, I'm not engaging with this nonsense.
Yeah. Which was a beautiful freedom. So me and my friend just rolled it back, and we picked just the core set and a couple of expansions.
Yeah.
And that's almost like the meta we live in now. And there's enough complexity and balance in that meta to, keep us going for years. And we never need to leave our cave on the mountain where we just played Netrunner from like 5 years ago, and no one could stop us. But it is sad that video games don't have that there aren't kind of legacy communities and stuff like that, or it's no space
There
for that.
are, but they sort of, it's that weird thing where you're often in conflict with the developers and
Like art rights and IP and stuff.
yeah, well, the Nostalrius would be the case in point right now, but also just the fact that if you connect, it will start auto patching,
Right.
or all of that kind of stuff, or if you want to play a tournament, to have any sort of recognition from them, you'll have to have the latest version, that kind of thing. And stuff like Call of Duty won't sanction anything that isn't that year's release, will it? So you don't end up with anything like, you know, the fact that people are still playing Source, Counter-Strike, you know, you'll never have that with Call of Duty because they just won't acknowledge that any of the other ones exist.
Which is true of Netrunner as well. Like, if I show up with, like, I guess you can go in with a Corsair or whatever and do your best.
Just be behind the meta.
You're just not going to stand a chance, really. And I suppose you would be recognised. But
Chris, you could do that with your X-Wing stuff at Games Expo. You could just go with, like, the core set.
Wave 1 or Wave 2 stuff, yeah. Like,
go with a set of Netrunner cards.
Take Tom.
Yeah, indeed. Although, yeah, our friends though are going to do the Netrunner European Championships the same weekend. So could just go do that instead.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of games have this. Like, you know, funny you mention X-Wing because obviously venturing off piece completely, but they just announced a expansion today for X-Wing, which is the first time I've, rather than go like, oh, that's interesting, I've gone, oh, for God's sake. And
Scum
like,
Aces, woo!
yeah, like it was like, this was the last thing the game needed. And it's that thing of like, maybe I do want to just play with what I've got, you know, and sort of gently retire from competitive.
The faction I've really casually bought into has become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And I don't even play it.
More powerful than it definitely should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a dumb idea. Anyway, but yeah, like I would say, I think sometimes when these changes happen to games, they can give the impression of undoing all of that work, but actually the reality is that there are often a few surface level things that need to get relearned, and loads still does apply. Like, I found that with Dota, like, a lot has changed. Like, an extraordinary amount has changed even by the standards of Dota patch, and that's definitely true. However, once I got used to it, which took like a week, I felt like it was still Dota, and the things that I knew how to do from Dota were still...
Yeah, but the things that you knew how to do from Dota are very different from the things that I knew how to do from Dota. Because, you know, it's things like, as a support, the warding spots are really important, and I still don't feel like I have a
there are
a handle on that kind of thing, and, you know, when you would pick up the bounty runes and things like that. But also, I think that you have maybe a similar amount of time to dedicate to Dota that you used to, and I just don't have that anymore. And so, because my work schedule has changed and I'm no longer like existing mostly online with my friends, and so I sort of don't have that 2,000 hours to pour into it. I think if I did and wanted to, it would be very different, but I think it's that thing of it won't get the same amount of effort of trying to learn it, and so it's just not easy to drop into. Yeah,
it is super interesting, I think, how the changes they've made to make the game easier to get into have the effect of making it harder to get back into if you knew it in its previous iteration, which is sort of an interesting trade-off for them to have made. Like the fact that, you know, they've things like stacking, pulling, warding even, they've made far less of a burden on new players than they were when we started playing, in terms of what supports are expected to do. It's a lot easier, but that comes at the expense of all that learned knowledge of how to do it the old way, basically. And that's this kind of interesting thing, I think. So see why they've made the changes they've made, but there's no getting around the fact that it's alienating.
It has obliterated my knowledge of like in-game timings and things, and I just don't have the will to relearn it or to learn it in a new format. So meh.
In conclusion,
I mean, like, you know, I'll still happily spend some time with friends in it, but I don't feel like I'm experimenting. I don't feel like it's anything other than a sort of skeleton on which to hang a conversation.
Whereas I like to think of it as a sort of endless misery box that is also the best game ever made.
What have you been playing, Chris?
Just the endless misery box. That is also the best game ever made.
Okay.
I don't really have much to add, to be honest. I mean, I suppose I've returned to it after a long absence, the longest absence I've ever taken from it. And it's still the game it was at its core. It's interesting the ways that it's different. I like the things they've built around it. It's got Valve have done a lot to build a better interface around Dota and more interesting ways of planning games and sort of engaging with people and that kind of thing. And there's sort of the comforting thing, talking about so much about change. The comforting thing is how much doesn't change. Like, there are so many better tools now for organizing your team at the beginning of matches and organizing team compositions and trying to strategize with strangers. And you even see the effects of it. People do strategize more. They do talk more, but they are still assholes who are angry at everybody most of the time. And when you get people who aren't, it's a miracle.
Well, it's like what Tom said earlier about raids that are exercises in multiple leadership, That's Dota. That's, 5 people who all want to be in charge and don't like what the other people are doing, and then...
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, I still find that philosophically fascinating. I still find it personally really interesting. I still love the game to pieces as a game, but I've definitely got less patience for it now than I used to. Because, I used to literally be able to absorb that stuff and then put out a 1,500-word column about it once a week. Because my enthusiasm for it was so great, it transcended simply bearing with the shit and actually sort of processing it into something. And now I don't think I have that in me anymore, really.
I'm too busy trying to stop the snails and the slugs from eating our irises.
Indeed. Yeah, who has the time?
I'm pushing back my own waves of creeps. So,
nice.
Like, constantly making friends with the birds by picking out all the snails for them.
Yeah. They've made some very me changes to Dota. They've added audio emotes, which include a little charge horn that goes ba-da-da-da-da-da, and a sad trombone and a badum-tsh drum roll and a round of applause, a sarcastic round of applause. And I love that. That's great. I love that in a world where more and more games companies are seeing about how they can try and encourage more positive communication between players, Valve just added the sarcastic clapping to Dota. It feels like they're trying to replace abuse with memes, which is probably progress on the whole.
My chat wheel is set to frog.
It just goes ribbit. There's one of them that's just ribbit.
I've muted you after you spammed the charge emote too many times.
It does give you a cooldown timer on it after a while. It does tell you to shut the fuck up.
You've charged enough, sir.
Well, what I haven't done is played Undying yet, because I used to spam the disco emote for him where he'd spin around and moonwalk and then the disco ball would come down, and now I can spam that and the charge emote. I love this game so much.
You're
so
part
much.
of the problem.
I know, but at least I'm nice. So it's great. But I don't have. I don't know. It's just sort of. I think my tastes in my life have changed in other ways. Like the miniature stuff that I've gone into in the years since Dota was my life obsession. Mean that I've got a different level of tolerance for feeling like my time's being wasted, I think, and that's been made Dota on the scale I used to play it harder to reconcile, but still.
You're right, you did find something else to throw money at.
I did, yeah. Well, yes, I have spent a lot less on Dota hats. Yes, indeed. Although, there is that under the sea terrain.
I know, I can't cope. It's so annoying. I really don't play the game anymore, and yet there's a thing that I can spend a lot of money on to just get under the sea terrain, and it's so annoying.
It's a skin where Nick's assassin is a lovely crab.
I know, and I don't even play him. I can't even play him. I don't understand him.
But he's a crab now.
Crab.
Oh, I know. And there's another character that I don't even play that looks like an octopus. Oh, this is the worst.
Dota. It's the worst.
Yeah.
And the best.
There was a
Perhaps.
TF2 hat that sold for $14,000 recently.
What? What was
Why?
it?
It's an unusual team captain's hat, and
This sounds suspicious.
unusual is the rarity where it has some special effect on it, like some particle effect or something, and like 1% of crates have that. Crates cost $2.50 to open, so it's like $250 basically to get one of those on average. And then the flame effect is the rarest one of the unusual ones, and this has that. And then also the team captain hat is the most desired one, or one of the most desirable ones, because 3 different classes can wear it. All the other ones apparently that you get unusual effects on are class specific, so they're no good if you're like, if you find a spy one and you don't play spy, then it's less useful to you. So this one can be worn by 3 different classes.
To be fair, I'm not sure how useful a flaming hat is to a spy.
Useful is maybe not the right word.
I'm surprised they didn't do what they did in Dota with that, because Dota used to have cosmetics that would sell for like crazy amounts of money, but then they divorced the particle effects and all of the other shenanigans from the thing, so you could like plug it into sockets, and so it wasn't special anymore, or as special, you know, because you could recreate it if you had all of the right gems and things to sock it into the item. So it surprises me that they didn't also add that to TF2.
Yeah, I don't know if this was a like Steam Marketplace transaction or whether it was off the books type thing. Because I
assume it's off the books because you can only have up to like $250 in your Steam wallet, can't you?
It's about 600, I think.
Oh, it's something. It's a lot less
14,000.
than that, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm also not sure if like whether these things can be traded. I suppose they probably can. I remember finding a lot of stuff in TF2 that couldn't be traded. But
in Dota, they have a lot of things that now have a time limit, so you can't trade them. But you know, if it's a special thing or if it's a time limited thing, then you can't trade them for a certain amount of time after you.
Dota's got a really locked down marketplace now. Like it's not what it used to be. In fact, it's kind of strange to me that Dota, CSGO and TF2 all have different degrees of third party market. Like Dota's is very, very locked down now. CSGO's is still, I think, a little bit more of a free for all.
I wonder if CSGO's is partly because if, you know, not wanting to be seen to be responding to directly to lawsuits in case that you know, implies guilt or something. Obviously I have no insight on that front, but it would be interesting to you know, whether not being seen to be responding to those things is as important as, you know.
I think they did respond to like the gambling thing, right?
Didn't they just sort of say that it wasn't like, this is not something we sanction, and
I think they started going down and actively shutting them down. Like,
okay. Oh, they sent some takedown notices, didn't they?
Shall we do some questions from questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Rather than infinite barking like a dog.
Yes.
Cool. Our first question comes from Dean. Dean writes, game you would most like to see come to PC that hasn't already. Shove Halfpenny excluded. Natch.
Bloodborne.
Katamari Damacy.
Nice.
Selfishly, I want Zelda because I can't play it currently.
Yep.
But unselfishly, Horizon Zero Dawn, so that anyone who has not yet played it can.
Good answers. Don't know if I have an answer for this. Probably Zelda as well. Maybe Bloodborne.
Yes.
But we can, you know, play all of these things in the comfort of my office now that we've got the Blubbin set up. Latest Blubbin is going up on Sunday.
Yes.
I did enjoy the reception to the last episode of Tom's surprisingly good at Bloodborne. Because it took us 3 episodes to the bit where suddenly competence emerged.
Prepare for a second wave of surprise. It get much worse.
No spoilers, but we built you up so that we can knock you down.
That's right, as Bloodborne does. It's fitting, really.
Indeed. Claudia writes, have you ever picked up a hobby because of a video game that you played?
I sort of got into archery for that reason. Not because there's so many bows in Far Cry games and the like, but well, yeah, a little bit because of that. Well, actually, yeah, I kind of got into... I was interested in archery because bows are so cool in video games, and it turns out they're really cool in real life. And then VR archery ruined it for me by being better and not requiring you to go anywhere. Because VR archery is just like... Obviously, you don't have the physicality of like the draw weight of a bow, but there was such a stronger correlation between me controlling my motion and actually having a good effect. Whereas with archery, like, I got a lot better at first, and then I didn't get any better for the next like 40 minutes of like careful, intentional practice with supervision from an expert. You're giving me like, you know, trying to guide me and everything, and I was reasonably good, but I didn't get any better, and so it's kind of stopped being. I was kind of thinking, okay, well, eventually I'll get better, but it'll take a long time. And then VR archery, no, you just get fucking better all the fucking time, constantly. Specifically, Hollow Point, which is I talked about before, which is an archery game where you're shooting things on all sides of you. So it's all about twisting and turning and ducking and dodging, and you're just using so many different muscles and skills that you can just keep getting better at it. It's really satisfying.
I sometimes come into Chris's room and knock his things on the floor.
What is that?
That's just like how I would in a Zelda game. Like I would just climb on things and push things over and just generally spoil your room.
Grab a chicken and fly away.
And then walk up, yeah, like
Jump out
I
the
won't
window.
even have a conversation. I'll just be like, well, I got what I came for. Goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's more of the bad influence of video games than a hobby that you've picked up, especially.
I think it's more that I can now blame it on video games.
Yeah.
I think it predated video games and coincided with seeing cats.
Wow, you can just do that?
Exactly, and you can. And people are so surprised that they won't call you on it. You can just walk into their room, push things off a table, and then leave.
I don't know if this is a genuinely applicable rule, Pip. I wouldn't encourage you to
Kim used to do
see how far
this
you can push this.
to me. She was just like, all the pens in the pen holders, take them out and put them down.
Yeah.
Just turn my mouse upside down.
Yeah. And then you don't
General
know what
mischief.
to do. Yeah, exactly.
I knew what to do. It was annoying to have to do it.
Yeah, but like,
Kill her.
it makes you... It does make you sort of pause for a moment, for long enough for some more mischief to happen. You know, while I'm carefully opening all of your books and turning them upside down and moving things around and, you know, putting things out of reach or on the floor or...
So,
It's great.
I mean, I'm thinking of getting a doorstop, I'm not going to lie. Just barricade
use it on
myself
the
in.
inside?
Yeah. But you'd get upset and you'd scratch at the door and whine. So,
I'd already be inside. And then
Oh,
you'd
God.
have trapped
The
me
mis-
in here.
the mischief is coming from inside the room.
Yes, exactly. I'd sit in your cupboard and wait.
You'd hate that.
Yeah, I'd get really bored and there would be a lot of noise coming from inside the cupboard.
Also,
but
the cupboard is where I keep both the Corvo mask and the Scary Tides
No,
of
I
Millionaire
meant that
mask.
one.
Oh, the other cupboard. Oh, shit. Well, I've got no foil for that. I'll
No.
tell you what, I'm going to put one scary mask in each cupboard.
I don't like this idea.
Exactly. All right, fine. I was going to say that I got into poker for a bit at uni because of Red Dead Redemption, which had a very good poker minigame in it. Well, it didn't have a good poker minigame in it. It had a functional poker minigame, and that was enough to make me decide that I wanted to be good at poker. Like a cowboy might be. Perhaps, why not?
How did that go?
Not great.
Are you good at poker?
I'm okay at the poker face lying side of poker. I struggle to remember all of the rules of poker as I did at the time. I think I'll probably be better at it now.
What, like the royal flush and all
Yeah,
that?
like exactly what the odds are of certain
Two
things coming
pair.
up. The actual game of it rather than the looking at people and going,
That's actually most of the game.
yeah.
The secret about poker is the kind of cultural idea that it's about reading people and
not.
lying, and it's actually, what's the odds of this happening? Well, let's play the odds.
Yeah.
And then, occasionally it comes down to, guessing people. But
Bothers me so much that every poker movie scene is just the main character bets everything he has on every hand he gets. Like Casino Royale, the
a
newest one
maniac
released.
play, yeah.
He literally bets everything he has on every hand he gets. And he wins because he has better cards. Like there's no skill or strategy or anything involved in it.
I've been in poker games like that, though, where you've just got a maniac, and sometimes they just win. But, yeah. The idea that grants him any sort of gravitas or kudos for doing that,
Yeah.
which is what the movie implies, is stupid. It's the opposite.
I'd like it if they were like betting on all of this stuff and then you'd pan round and you'd see that they were just playing Happy Families. And like it was like, have you got Mr. Chip Shop Man?
Casino Royale would have
yes.
been a much better game if they were playing Netrunner.
Although
more
only
tense.
two of them could play.
They could all line up and
That's
then
true.
Yeah, steal each other's cards. and
They
stuff.
could have a little tournament.
Oh yes.
Very different from if they were playing Warhammer.
Take like 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be so good.
What bond? This is a question for the next minis podcast. Like which army bond would collect? What it says about him for a different podcast.
Yeah,
We're not
different
going to get
podcast.
into it
Yeah,
now.
someone send that into the miniatures podcast.
Yes.
Our next question comes from Benedict. Any pre-2000s 2D games you'd like remade as VR games?
I'd like to see Dungeon Keeper made, because in Dungeon Keeper you've got a grabby hand. I think looking down on your dungeon in 3D.
I too, a human man. hand.
Let's combine
I can
both
relate
of
to
them.
this.
And I love the idea of kind of like, because it's a shriveled hand that's like an evil hand. So I love the idea of reaching down with the controller and seeing your evil hand and picking up an imp and then slapping it with the other hand and then putting it down somewhere else.
I've seen videos of a VR sort of village building game where you have an embodied hand in the world. You just literally grab civilians and pick them up and put them where you want them, and pick up buildings and stuff. It looks cool.
And I think like that really satisfying noise that it makes in Dungeon Keeper, where you allocate a chunk of rock to be mined out by your imps, like just tapping bits of block or just kind of like rubbing it with a hand and then watching it be demolished would be really satisfying in VR.
Yeah,
it's really tactile.
Had great sound design. Dungeon Keeper.
I'd like to play 3D VR Pipe Mania. That could be interesting, with like the different shapes and trying to connect things, and like trying not to have like spillages of ooze like seeping everywhere. That could be kind of cool.
Plumbing.
Yeah, well, I thought about this, but obviously it's not plumbing, is it? There's too much gunge for plumbing, right? Because otherwise, that's not how water looks in real life.
No, that's true. That is the fantasy of it.
It's green.
Yes.
And so, you couldn't do it in real life.
I don't know what old 2D game this would be based on, perhaps none, but I really want like a kind of management game where I think I'm thinking of like, is it called like Tiny Tower on mobile thing, where there's a tower and there's something going on every floor, and it's just a management game like spinning plates kind of thing.
Yeah, you have like residential floors, and you have shops, and you have it's like a high-rise city essentially.
I want that, but 3D, and just sort of like the tower's about my height, and so I'm just kind of like, I can sit on the floor or I can like move around it, and it's just a case of like looking inside of what's going on there, and then like tapping on things and moving things around to make sure it's running well.
When I went to FanFest and they were sort of pushing VR that first year that they were working on like Valkyrie, they had as part of their VR sort of extravaganza, they had an Eve, like massive ship. I don't know what it was called, which one it was, but you could put your VR headset on and get in really close and see people actually moving around on the different floors. It was kind of like having one of those replica sort of Titanic or Carpathia or something, but that you get in massive glass cases at like the Science Museum or whatever now, but in this virtual reality space, so it could animate, and you could see people going about their lives. It was essentially like having a doll's house, which that would be really cool.
I think so. Just quickly on VR, like the challenge that they've got to get over is it's got to be something that's like so worth me putting that headset on, and the hassle of setting it up and clearing my room and making sure there's space around. Like, it's got to be not just worth it when I do it, but it's got to be so worth it that even before I do it, I know it's going to be worth it. Because that's the problem right now. There's a bunch of things where I remember vaguely that when I did this, it was worth it, but it's not like just from sitting at my desk without having done all that work of setting it up, it doesn't seem worth it. And you've got to make things that are just so worth being there. Like, it can't be casual, it can't be low engagement, low interest. It's got to be something really fucking like worth a bunch of effort to get into.
Or even just that it fills a gap in someone's life. Because I was thinking about this the other day, because I was thinking that an interesting application of VR could be to do with faith. And so people who maybe can't get out to church or something, if you had a VR headset and, game or an app rather, where you could boot it up and it would present you with one of those like the inside of a cathedral, that kind of cavernous space that I think is helpful for some people to shift into that mindset
that's interesting.
Sort of presenting them with, I don't know, a particular church service or whatever, if that was what they were after. I think it could be interesting in that way, and that would be a kind of a service, pun not intended, that it would provide to them, that they might genuinely be willing to put up with the faff of VR because it would provide something of worth to them. I think that wasn't a 2D game.
Just Faith was not a 2D game in the 90s.
Patrick writes, Dear Crab and Crumble Pie. Last week on the pod, when discussing Edith Finch, you mentioned scenes in which in the game where you know that your character will be doomed by your actions but having to do it in order to progress. This falls under the umbrella of LND, ludonarrative dissonance. Oh. But I think I want to draw a distinction between games forcing you to do morally repugnant things, repugnant, not repugnant, things like no be Russian. The example for me was in GTA 4, knowing that the action of Nico killing his unreliable and hot-headed boss early in the game was inevitable given the characters, but I wasn't able to bring myself to do it. The only choice in the offer was to walk away from the game, and that's what I did for about an hour. Have you been in a situation like that, where you can see that something is a logical consequence of the systems or personalities in the game, but because it has to happen by your hand, you're unable to bring yourself to do so? Thanks for podding, Patrick.
If he's responding to... I'm trying to think. No, actually, he probably isn't. There's an Edith Finch complaint that I had that wasn't exactly that, but I probably didn't say it on the podcast because I think it's a bit spoilery. So I certainly shouldn't say it now anyway. To his question, I did have a thing in a game where I stopped playing the game because I didn't want to do it. And it was partially moral, more like visceral reasons, and it was VR. It was Accounting, which is the game by William Pugh and Justin Roiland, and possibly some others, I'm not sure who else. Justin Roiland being the Rick and Morty guy, and William Pugh being one of the Stanley Parable people. And it's sort of like pitched as an accounting app, but obviously you know there's going to be more to it, and pretty soon you get transported to some strange places. And it's one of those things where like it puts you in situations where it's really obvious what you have to do to progress, but there's like a character yelling at you not to do it, or that kind of thing. And sometimes there's a character yelling at you to do it. But in this case, big, fat guy, very cartoonish, and he's got this like giant, like weirdly swollen stomach. I think it might even have like a sort of dotted line on it or something. And he is just, he's in some kind of like dungeon, and you arrive there and he's like just saying, I'm so glad to meet you, like this is so great, I've been alone here for so long, it's so lovely to have someone else here. And he keeps talking like that, and there's just a giant knife on the table in front of him, and I think he even like makes some comments about like, I don't know, says some things that
you
sort
make
of
a cutting remark.
Yeah, I think he indirectly expresses a desire not to be cut open by this knife, and it's very obvious that you have to cut him open with a knife, and I just didn't want to do it. It was just too real. Like, even though he's incredibly cartoonish, being in VR just makes everything more real, and like stabbing this like nice friendly dude, it was just beyond what I was prepared to do, so I literally just stopped playing the game. I don't know what happens after that.
I think there is a game where I stopped playing it because I think it wasn't quite the same as that. It wasn't a kind of visceral effect of that kind of choice, but it was a kind of, I'm just not playing your nonsense. And I've had it a few times with games, but usually quite early on, you know, when they try and teach you a lesson, and it's like, the thing that we basically got you to do, well, surprise, that taught you a moral lesson. And you're like, well, it didn't really, and that was lazy as all hell, and it just sort of, it bodes so poorly for the rest of the game that's usually where I tap out. But I think, I'm really struggling to remember it, but there was definitely one fairly recently where I just sort of thought, do you know what? I'm not doing it. Don't care.
Not recent, but Assassin's Creed 1 does that really badly. Like, it starts off with you just having to kill a bunch of people who aren't your target, and then you get lectured for like half an hour. No, you don't kill people who aren't your target. You're an idiot. It's like, I didn't want to do that. You made me do that. You fucking pricks.
Well, yes. But yeah, and there's also just like that. I mean, I have also stopped. I can't play BioShock because of the injections and stuff. But that wasn't what the question was it?
How do you feel about Prey?
Well, hang on. How spoilery is it? Hang on.
I think that what you do to install a neuromod is not spoilery.
So I haven't got that far because I decided that I really liked the fish tank in my apartment, or just outside my apartment.
I think there's one in your apartment as well.
Is there?
Yeah, I think there's two.
It is really nice. I looked at that for ages.
But yeah, so I spent ages
so.
looking at it, and I have a lot of screenshots of that fish. And then when things sort of go to hell just afterwards, and like the game seemed to want me to break the fish tank, and then so I did, but I felt really terrible about it, even though that then reveals a lie related to said fish tank. And then so I sort of carried on with the game for a bit after that, but my heart wasn't in it because I missed my fish tank and I felt sad, and it didn't really seem to be about fish anymore. So I mean, if it is about fish, maybe let me know so that I will finish.
You don't
the
have to
game.
destroy that fish tank.
Yeah,
No, I know,
that's true.
and that's why I felt really bad, because then I realised that I didn't have to destroy it, but I already had done, and I felt a bit like the game had pressured me, and I was a bit cross with it, because I didn't want to hurt the fish, even though it didn't then hurt the fish, because I felt like I'd been peer pressured.
I might be wrong actually about there being one in your apartment.
I really don't think there is. I
Yeah,
feel
you're
like
probably
that's
right.
the sort of thing I would remember.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
more likely to
just
remember that than me.
I remember staring at the fish tank in that game. Is it in the
It's
initial
just
test
after
lab?
you leave your apartment, you turn right.
Yeah, it's in the
Right.
corridor.
And
outside
it's
your
in the
apartment.
corridor,
I
like
see.
just outside, just above a chair, and there's one single like angelfish, I think, just sort of doing its thing. Yeah, that's right. I have looked at that for quite a while. So yeah.
Our next question comes from Diffractor, who writes, "A loud and firm hello to you.
Hello.
I saw a game advert, maybe you've seen it too. A human and an alien walk along a path to a mysterious pyramid with a mysterious figure. The alien is chosen and the human is angry. Suddenly, space fights. The two of them are fighting each other. The music swells, and then endless space too." I burst out laughing. What are the worst examples of trailer/game disconnect that you have seen? Do you think these harm the game's reception? Best regards, Diffractor.
So for context, Endless Space 2 is a
4X
turn-based 4X strategy game.
Yeah, it's a 4X strategy game. It's not Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I think anything that is like a live action advert for a 4X game misleads me. Because
Yeah.
I'm always a bit like, oh, but then it won't be like that.
Yeah. I remember the trailer for Elder Scrolls Online was a sort of just a cinematic battle between the various races that they're going to offer you in that, but like to a ridiculous extent where you just all the time you're watching it, nothing you're showing me will ever happen in the game, like, or nothing like it.
And
MMO.
the CCG, isn't it? Like they've got people huddled around a fire while someone tells a story, and you're like, it's a CCG, mate. I mean,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
come on.
MMOs are the worst offenders for this.
Yeah.
Across the board. Like, Tom, when we were talking about this earlier, you mentioned Star Wars The Old Republic.
Yeah, I think their latest kind of expansion, which I think is about a child who gets corrupted by the dark side. But
Star
it's-
Wars, then.
Yeah, so
Wouldn't
they
you
get
know
all the
it?
Star Wars stories. But there's a fantastic like about 7-minute CG movie that just is independently a fantastic little Star Wars short story with a spectacular lightsaber fight and amazing dramatic scene setting, and it's just beautifully shot. Nothing to do with the game. You play the game, I like that game, but my goodness, there's nothing in it that
Yeah.
achieves that level of fidelity or
Actually,
intrigue.
Sort of building on that positive aspect of like the thing being good in itself. I remember the intro cutscene for Warcraft 2, which for some reason I mentioned like 3 times today, was just an orc fighting a human in a field.
Oh, yeah.
And it was CG, and I just remember being fucking blown away by that fight. I watched it like 15 times. It was literally the most exciting like fantasy battle I'd ever seen. It's just one orc, one human. But like the sort of, I'm sure it's pathetic if you watch it today, but the orc was fucking enormous. Like his bicep is the size of the human, and he's just like absolute towering monstrosity. And the impact of the blows that they exchange is just like was so convincing to me at that time.
That thing was so influential. It is the opening scene of the Warcraft movie. It's
Really?
one of the most like.
It's good as well.
One of the most like. I mean, that movie is a bit of a disaster, but when it works, it
scene's
really
good.
works,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like it just opens on basically the same shot as the beginning of Warcraft 2, which is a really deep cut, but kind of cool. So that's, they kind of respected that legacy of it.
Yeah, I should watch that.
Don't mean
Just that.
yeah.
I don't know, like, I was thinking about the point about misleading, though. I mean, I think I get disappointed if the bit of it that I liked is the bit that isn't representative. Like if it's the action element when it's a turn-based strategy game, like that always throws me off. But just because I'm sat there thinking, oh, I wish you'd made the other game out of this, or I wish you'd made the TV episode out of this. But I think the only time where I've thought that it's been particularly disappointing and misleading is No Man's Sky. I still think that trod too closely to what you were expecting to see in the game, and the systems worked in slightly different ways and worse. And I do think that despite the ruling, and I have read it and everything, I do think it misleads. I do think it's not the game experience you get.
It's interesting though, because one of the reasons it's so difficult is that is an extremely subtle difference between the trailer and the game relative to the kinds of advertising, for example, being brought up here. And so it's interesting that.
But that's why that's the one I have the problem with.
Absolutely, but like as that precedent gets set for what is and isn't deemed misleading, it's sort of interesting that if for example that No Man's Sky trailer had been deemed misleading in a kind of a consumer rights sense, then there are so many game trailers that are, including the Endless Space ones already been mentioned, including half the MMO ones we're talking about, that are vastly worse. And that's I think that doesn't excuse any game in particular. It just shows that the art of advertising games on TV is in a really weird place, because it's so divorced from the medium that it's actually advertising. Like, it's not like a TV spot for a movie. It's really is kind of mad that like those. I mean, because all of those that's there are some Star Wars: The Old Republic shorts are pretty good, and they probably make a very compelling TV spots because people love Star Wars and all the rest of it, but they have nothing to do with the product that's being advertised at all. They might as well be selling crisps. Like, there's I can't think of another medium where that level of sheer tonal, visual.
But I think it's that thing of like
differences.
Obviously, to argue the other side is to say that it's an attempt to explain the way it feels when you play it, because obviously looking over someone's shoulder at a 4X, you're not going to see the stories unfolding in any kind of epic way, even though that's the intention and that's what they hope that they are building. And so like that's in that way, I'm actually fine when it's so divorced that you can tell really easily. It's more when it blurs that line and you're not sure whether this is what you're expecting to play or whether this is the evocative sort of, concept that you're seeing play out, and that's hopefully what you'll get an approximation of, but you don't know. I think that was the problem that I had with No Man's Sky. Even though I love the game, I do think that you get a different thing than you see in the advert. And like I say, it got ruled that it wasn't misleading, and whatever. But
I think that particularly is like definitely going to be more misleading to game literate people. I feel maybe that's a line worth sort of establishing. It's like if you're super game literate, you're probably less likely to be misled by one of these kind of flashy CGI trailers, because you're used to reading between the lines or understanding that that's not what you're getting necessarily. If you're less game literate, you're probably more likely to be misled by the flashy thing than by the more subtle kind of grades of difference. But I do agree with you that it is a more kind of troubling.
It's interesting, because when you're advertising, I think when you're advertising toys to kids on TV, you have to show the kid interacting with the real toy. You can't just show what it would be doing if it had an inner life, as in Toy Story. You have to have to show it in context so that the kid isn't misled, and so
you have to show its limp, lifeless body.
And so I'd be interested if there was anything like that would ever come out for games, like in a
you have
kind
to show
of
a kid playing it,
or you have to show, I don't know, a certain proportion of the advert has to be in-game footage. You can't just show a cinematic trailer and go, well, there you go, that's the game. Pre-order now.
Like that kind of rule would strongly favour things like Far Cry, where the game itself is one thing, and then it has in-engine cinematic scenes that are incredibly well digitally acted and presented, just like movie scenes, basically. And you could reasonably say that's in-game, and that would kind of circumvent it in a way.
Imagine if they had to do the disclaimers like you get on American health, like prescription medicine adverts, you know? Like, may not be as depicted, blah, 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 might cause death. Please check with your parents before you know, all that kind of...
Maybe a 60% game.
So a really good...
Ratings may go up as well as down.
So a really good advert, actually, 'cause we always complain about them. But there's a really good one for the new Lord of the Rings, the sequel to Shadow of Mordor, which is Shadow of something else, Shadow of War, which famously does cast a shadow as a concept. But it just showed your player character climbing up the wall on the outside of a castle and then getting into a tussle with an orc necromancer with the kind of cutscenes, and then it broke out into combat and showed all the systems like climbing and vaulting and running. And having played the first game, I know that is all legit, and I know how all that stuff feels, and the combat feels really good in that game. It's really violent and quick, and it was displaying all that same stuff, and it was really it was obviously choreographed, so nothing kind of clumsy happened. The person who's playing it was really good, and they did the famous insta-kill decapitations on everyone to make it look good. But it was legitimately the game, and it got me really excited for it because it reminded me of the first game, and it also demonstrated how they'd kind of elevated it for the sequel. So I'm actually now quite excited about that one.
Huh, yeah. That's good. So it helps when games are promising.
Yeah, and they just lay out the systems for you and say this is what happens, which is what Rockstar are very good at this as well, I think, with their... they just have like a voiceover over footage of stuff happening. You just literally explain what you do in the thing. And that's all I want.
Do you think that you would have felt that way if you hadn't played Shadow of Mordor? As in, would you have looked at that trailer and gone, well, I mean, I've been burnt by this before, is that even... You know, because you had context that you could then apply. You weren't just sort of trying to go on trust and a bit of learned cynicism. It was, okay, that's a system I know and it looks better in this thing.
Yeah, I think I would have dismissed about 40% of it, but I think like 60% of it I would have been excited about anyway. Like watching the combat and watching, there's a bit where he jumps off a rampart and pulls his bow and goes into slow motion, gets 2 headshots, and then he's sailing down towards like a campfire. And the thing in Shadow of War is that you're kind of half magic ghost elf, half human, and you can switch into ghost elf form to do magic stuff. And he's got a hammer. He's like the guy who forged the ring, basically. His magic hammer does stuff. And then so he targets like a campfire, and he turns into ghost guy, and he hammers the campfire, just slams down, and the campfire explodes and sets like a load of orcs around him on fire. And that I was like, I would be sold on that, even if I'd not played the previous game. It's like, oh, I get to do that, and it's clearly in game. It's clearly a system that exists in the game that is working as intended. As someone who's played a lot of games, I wouldn't necessarily need to play that game specifically to understand that how that would work and why it would feel good.
I'll tell you something that's in the Grudge book, and that is in-engine footage, just as a caption that means nothing, because it's just such a broad, meaningless term. It's essentially, well, you probably won't find this in the game, but we've like fudged it to some extent so that it's essentially using some of the same tech. I don't know. Here's the thing.
Yeah, it could be entirely choreographed, and it can like circumvent like an engine's problems by simply selectively showing you scenes that are of a certain size,
rendered on a rig designed.
Like a rig that no gamer would own. And also, like equally, alpha footage, alpha gameplay. It's an industry term. It's not a term that a consumer would understand. And besides that, every studio has a different definition of what alpha is. Like, it's such a meaningless...
Alpha footage sounds like the best footage.
Maybe that's why they do it.
And beta as well. Like, I mean, there's such sloshy, weird terms that don't really mean anything. Like, I wrote a thing about, people can sign up for that, the Sunless Skies beta for, but I think it was, what was it, like it was called a closed alpha, and then people were sort of messaging me to sort of, argue the toss that it was, in my day, this was called a beta, and it's like, well, I mean...
That's a boring
They're calling
day.
it closed alpha, and that is what you will find it with if you put it in Google or whatever, and just these terms are meaningless anyway. They essentially just mean that it hasn't released yet, and the next letter is Delta. Is Delta an official thing now? Is it, or is that the actual release? Is that so dumb. Sorry, that was I'm just scribbling in the grudge book.
All by yourself.
As always.
That's not true. You have much help. In fact, do you have some help here from Gamey Oddlyman, which I don't think is his real name.
Sure.
Who sends a tiny Twitter-sized grudge. Hold on, Dishonored. I can steal items from Piero Joplin's own desk and sell them back to him. How will he react to this? Will he be angry, confused? What would the outcome of this brazen act of theft possibly be? Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah. Reasonable. That's annoying.
There's no consequence for theft.
I remember in Stalker, there'd be merchants who would buy artifacts from you, and there would frequently be 3 or 4 artifacts just next to them, within 3 feet, and you pick it up and then sell it to them for a fortune. Wow, where did you get this? This is amazing.
Who was the person that he was stealing from?
Piero Joplin.
Who's that?
I invented.
He's like Q.
Oh, he's the guy with the mask, right? He made the mask.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. But
See, I actually always thought that one could be explained quite easily, which is that because he says that the reason you pick up some things in Dishonored, they just turn into money, basically, because there's no selling mechanic in that game. It's just if you pick something up that you could sell, you just get the money straight away, just to avoid that extra level of fuss. And he explains to you that he needs you to gather things so that he can sell the things, and then he will go out and buy the materials he needs to make the stuff for you. So it's like the game almost just skips all of the mechanism involved in him getting the resources for crafting stuff. You click on a painting or a piece of art in the world, it turns into money. Piero goes and uses that money to buy the stuff he needs to make you things, and so all that amounts to is you give Piero money and he gives you things, and it's just a sort of hyper streamlined thing. So I always assumed that when you were picking up and selling the stuff in his office, it was because you had agreed that you would pawn off this stuff to buy the whatever he needs in order to make your gear. So I don't think it necessarily is a huge disconnect in Dishonored specifically, but I do get what Gamey is getting at, which is that it's weird that people in RPGs let you steal all their stuff, even though there's a robust simulation for other things.
I think it's I don't know, because it annoys me both ways. For example, when I get caught stealing in Skyrim, it always really annoys me, because I'm like, yeah, but you left it right there, and then
It's on your table, come on.
And then the game is sort of built around you picking up all manner of nonsense, and so the weird bits where it suddenly decides, no, that's someone else's nonsense, and you're just a bit like, really? And sometimes it can just feel quite arbitrary, because it's like, okay, well, that thing is and that thing isn't, and
I remember Fallout 3 had this karma system, so it didn't even matter whether anyone saw you do something, it would still count on karma. And in the basement of some murdering cannibals, I took the bone saw that they've been using to saw up bodies, and I lost karma for that. No, that's their saw. Leave it there. They might need to use it to chop up some more bodies later.
Yeah, I kind of get why all of that stuff is why it exists, and it's mostly outliers within systems that more broadly make sense. But I think games really haven't figured that one out, it feels like, because either it's like, hey, collect everything except that thing. I think
the rules are pretty there are some weird inconsistencies in the Elder Scrolls games.
But it's not even necessarily that it's inconsistent. It's that it just doesn't feel fun to not steal all of their things. Because I
disagree with that. There's always the stuff you can't get in the dungeons just sitting there in the shop, and you can either buy it or you can try and nick it, but there's a challenge that goes with nicking it.
You can slowly lower a bucket over the shopkeeper's head, and then you can steal it because he doesn't have line of sight anymore.
I remember that.
Exactly, that behaviour is enabled by your inability to just
yes, but I don't believe that anything should be difficult to me when I'm having a power fantasy, and thus, like, if I have the most important job and the most big sword and the best collection of potions that do absolutely stupid things, then why would nobody give me their things without being, like...
Why won't you all just give me your things?
I'm terrifying, right? I have unpredictable potions, a big sword, a bunch of souls, and you won't even let me have a bread roll.
I remember
That sucks. That stinks. I'm the king of this land, and that's rubbish.
Well, you're perfectly entitled to just kill them all when they object. If you're that powerful. If you steal a horse in Skyrim, if no one sees you do it, it's fine. But then, I stole a horse and I rode along to Riften, I think, and just before Riften there's an Imperial Guard camp, and I got off to talk to some of those guys, and they were cool with me, and we're chatting, and they're inviting me to join the Imperial Legion and stuff. And then I got back on my horse, and they're like, "Oh my god, a thief!" It's like, okay, I see where you're coming from. Technically, that isn't my horse, but how the fuck did you know that?
Was the horse telling on you? That horse was a rat.
He doesn't own me.
He's not my owner. Stranger
My own
danger,
horse.
stranger danger.
You should have written Tom's horse on it, and then you'd have been fine.
Just love that they see me ride in. That's like, oh, okay, he's on his horse. He's getting off his horse, all fine. And he's getting back on the horse. Wait a minute.
That's not the natural reaction of a horse to its owner. It's like feeling slightly annoyed. I don't know. Oh, I just wish people would give me all of their things.
I know.
Oh, I don't even remember what the grudge was. I just want a bread roll.
Sweet rolls always look good with that icing and stuff.
Oh, yes. Can't you decorate your entire house in the Elder Scrolls Online with sweet rolls?
I don't know.
I meant to investigate that, and then it would have required a lot of playing the Elder Scrolls Online, and I figured I could just buy some sweet rolls.
Yeah.
And decorate the house with them.
Or just eat them.
Bit of both. If you buy enough sweet rolls, you're going to get tired of them eventually.
That's
aren't
true.
you? You're going to get tired of eating. Your mouth will get tired. And then you'll just have to make sure you've got enough sweet rolls to sleep on. You see?
I believe that's all of the deeply sound life advice we've got time for.
And if you get, those cinnamon rolls, then you could unroll them and then cover twice the amount of floor real estate. Although they wouldn't be recognisably cinnamon rolls at that point. They would be cinnamon strips.
Spectacularly useless advice, Pip.
Oh.
I mean, but
That's hurtful.
you were not being serious, I assume.
I was solving a problem.
For whom?
Potentially
This is a tricky
me.
question.
Potentially anyone. Thank you.
If you'd like to send us a piece of priceless life advice for a future episode of the podcast,
I won't read it.
or indeed a question, or more traditionally, a grudge, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can also tweet us at crateandcrowbar, and you can help us out a little bit by, rating the podcast on iTunes, by pressing the like on subscribe buttons on YouTube, and so on. If you find out a little bit more about supporting the podcast through Patreon, you can do that at
You should rate it 5 stars.
That's helpful.
5.
Yeah, not less than that.
No.
You can... I love
Far Cry 5.
that helpful interjection bit just completely threw me, and I've now forgotten the URL for the Patreon.
It's patreon.com/Patreon
No.
crowbar.
No, it's not.
Crate
I'm
and
pretty sure it's
Crowbar,
patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar.
Patreon /
It's just the normal URL. It's the
.net.
URL you'd expect.
org.
It's patreon.com/Crate&Crowbar.
Yeah.
Link is also in
That's
our
what I was
website.
saying, but then I Patreoned too many times.
It's happened to us all.
There was some interference.
I guess there's no such thing as Patreoning too many times. Is there, though? Is that? Yes. Anyway, moving on.
Patreon.com/Crate and Crowbar.
This was going fine.
Yeah, but this gives them enough time to get to a computer and write it all in. HTTP.
Oh, God. Do you remember, in the early 90s, or no, maybe not then, but at some point in the early days of the web, when it was people having to read out URLs on TV for the first time, they got sick of saying HTTP:// and they had this, motion to call it hit web. That was what they wanted to say, was hit web.
That's hilarious.
google.com.
But then now they can't even be bothered with www.
Yeah, well, sometimes you don't need it, but sometimes you do.
Chris doesn't even say it on this.
No, because it's implicit, really, isn't it?
I think you can get away without it. It depends on your domain registrar.
It does depend on your domain
And
registrar.
your browser of choice.
I mean, okay, so if anyone has been listening to this podcast for 191 episodes and has failed to find our website in that time because I haven't mentioned it, then in full it is hitweb, www.crateandcrowbar, that's one word lowercase, dot, which is actually a full stop if you're unsure which one is the dot, com.
It's a back dot, it's not the forward dot.
Stationary lower dot. Not
Lol.
an animated dot either. If you would like to follow us as individuals, I'm on Twitter at @CThurston, that's CTHURSTEN. Tom.
I'm at PCG Ludo, which is LUDO.
Tom.
I'm at Pentact, PENTADACT.
And he's
Tom.
Tom Francis, by the way.
Keep saying it, more Toms will show up.
Just so you know.
I was going to try that. Tom. Pip.
Yes. Oh, at Philippa War, which is at PHILIPPAWAWR.
Good job. That was collectively a shambles at the end there, wasn't it?
www.twitter.com/Philippa War.
Hitweb Twitter.
Let's go. Thanks for listening, everybody.